Good morning, everyone. Ready? I would like to call to order this public hearing of the Committee on the Judiciary and Public Safety. It is 10:08 a.m. on Wednesday, February 28th, 2024, and we are conducting the hearing in person in room 123 of the John A. Wilson Building and streaming on the DC Council's website, on YouTube at CM Brooke Pinto, and on Twitter at CM Brooke Pinto. I'm Councilmember Brooke Pinto, representing Ward 2 and chairwoman of the committee. The Committee on the Judiciary and Public Safety has oversight responsibility for matters affecting the district courts, criminal law, procedure and justice, public safety, including policing, violence prevention and intervention, and civilian police oversight, access to justice, including victim services and justice grants, fire and emergency medical services, and the district's 911 and 311 services, forensic science, fatality review and medical examinations, homeland security and emergency response, adult corrections, family law, probate and estates, child support, and women's and gender policy. Today, the committee is meeting to conduct a performance oversight hearing for one agency, the Office of the Attorney General. The Office of the Attorney General, or OAG, is an independent agency charged with conducting the district's legal business. OAG represents the district in most civil litigation, prosecutes certain adult and all juvenile criminal matters, and represents the district in a variety of administrative hearings and other proceedings. In addition, OAG is responsible for advising the Executive Office of the Mayor, the Council, and various boards and commissions, and for determining legal sufficiency of proposed legislation, regulations, and commercial transactions. It shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that one of the biggest topics of interest in regard to OAG today is addressing issues of youth crime in the district. I want to be clear that most children in the district are doing wonderful things. It is also true that we have seen crime increase and we have seen involvement of young people in crime increase in recent years more than before. I'll be very interested to hear from the Attorney General later today on what his office is focusing on in regards to our youth, and I plan to ask him in particular about some concerning data that I've seen in JCC's new database regarding the success of our youth diversion programs. Diversion is an extremely important tool, and we must ensure that it is leading to outcomes that will support a young person sustainably and that will improve safety. I'll also ask about restorative justice and how OAG determines which crimes can qualify for restorative justice. I plan to ask Attorney General Schwab about much of OAG's very important work on the civil side as well. For example, I want to understand what the agency is doing to better address our affordable housing issues and conditions of our housing units, restaurant service fees, and I want to hear about OAG's work on important environmental issues and environmental litigation. Finally, some of the recent discussion about a potential merger of OAG's Cure the Streets program with the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement's Violence Interruption Program has arisen. I'll be asking the Attorney General about Cure the Streets and his views on a possible merger, what that would look like, and how we can ensure such a merger would honor the important work that has gone on for the last several years and maintaining the very important impact of our violence interruption efforts in the city. For today's hearing, we're going to follow the committee's normal practice and hear from public witnesses first, followed by our government witnesses. I'd like to invite our first panel of public witnesses. If I can ask the first name I call to sit to my right and your left at the table. We will start with Rosemary Tarico, Gladys Sandoval, Susel Merida, and Antonia Pena. So much. We normally provide 3 minutes for public witness testimony for public witnesses and 5 minutes for those representing organizations. If you have a an interpreter with you, we're going to double that time to make sure that it can be accounted for in the translation. Okay? So we're going to start with Rosemary Tarico. Okay. Wonderful. And are you? Sure. Or are you Antonio? Okay. And if you can make sure that when you're speaking, your red light is on.
Ya. Ok. Buenos días, concejal Pinto. Mi nombre es Antonia Peña y soy codirectora del capítulo de DC de la Alianza Nacional de Trabajadoras del Hogar de DC. Estoy aquí hoy con 3 de nuestros miembros líderes para testificar sobre la subvención de derechos laborales para las trabajadoras del hogar de la Oficina Fiscal General. Este es un nuevo programa de subvenciones que se estableció mediante la Ley de Enmienda de los Derechos Laborales de las Trabajadoras del Hogar del 2022.
Good morning. Good morning, Councilmember Pinto. My name is Antonia Peña, and I'm a co-director of the DC chapter of the National Domestic Workers Alliance. I'm here today with 3 of our member leaders to testify about the Domestic Worker Employment Rights Grant Program at the Office of the Attorney General. This is a new grant program which was established through the Domestic Worker Employment Rights Amendment Act of 2022.
Desde mi experiencia de más de 20 años en la industria de trabajadora del hogar, considero que es fundamental contar con subvenciones como estas para apoyar a las organizaciones que realizan la labor crucial de organizar. Este momento es especial y significativo para mí, ya que me trae a la mente todos los desafíos que he enfrentado personalmente durante mi tiempo de niñera y cuidadora y limpiadora y que he observado en muchas de nuestras compañeras. Nuestra Carta de Derechos representa un paso hacia la justicia y la dignidad, y este programa asegura que un número más amplio de trabajadoras del hogar puedan hacer oír su voz y reconocer la esencialidad de su labor.
From my experience of over 20 years in the domestic work industry, I consider it essential to have grants like this to support organizations that carry out the crucial work of organizing. This moment is particularly meaningful for me as it brings to mind all the challenges I have personally faced during my time as a nanny and caregiver, and have witnessed in many of my colleagues. Our Bill of Rights represents a step towards justice and dignity, and this program ensures that a broader number of domestic workers can make their voices heard and recognize the essential nature of their work.
Esta Ley de Derecho de las Trabajadoras del Hogar brinda derechos y protecciones fundamentales para los trabajadores de DC que trabajan en una casa privada, incluidas las niñeras, limpiadores de casa y las que cuidan a personas mayores con discapacidades en sus casas. Las trabajadoras del hogar en DC lucharon y luché durante más de 4 años para estos cambios a la ley que toman varios pasos importantes para hacer de las condiciones de su trabajo sean más seguras, más dignas, más justas. La ley reinvierte la exclusión legal de las trabajadoras del hogar de la Ley de Derechos Humanos de DC, que fue el resultado de más de un siglo de racismo y sexismo, que tiene raíces en la esclavitud. Establece que las trabajadoras del hogar que trabajan al menos 5 horas al mes para el mismo empleador ahora tienen derecho a un contrato escrito.
This domestic workers' rights law provides critical rights and protections for DC workers who work in someone's home, including nannies, house cleaners, and those who can take care of the elderly and people with disabilities in their home. Domestic workers in DC fought hard for over 4 years for these changes to the law, which takes several big steps towards making the conditions of their work safe, more dignified, and more fair. The law reverses the legal exclusion of domestic workers from the DC Human Rights Act that was the result of over a century of racism and sexism dating back to enslavement. It states that domestic workers who are employed at least 5 hours a month for the same employer now have the right to a contract.
Ahora que la ley es plenamente efectiva, es hora de asegurar de que se implemente de manera real en las vidas de las trabajadoras del hogar. Las trabajadoras del hogar necesitan conocer la ley y poder tomar fácilmente medidas para recibir reparación y justicia si se violan sus derechos.
Now that the law is fully effective, we need to make sure that it is implemented in a way that is real in the lives of domestic workers. Domestic workers need to know about the law and need to be able to easily take steps to receive remedies and justice if their rights are violated.
Dada la situación dispersa de la industria del trabajo del hogar y el tiempo y los recursos necesarios para alcanzar a las trabajadoras individuales, a sus empleadores, las organizaciones comunitarias están en una posición única para garantizar que las trabajadoras y sus empleadores entiendan sus derechos y responsabilidades. La ampliación de las leyes laborales para las trabajadoras del hogar requieren un enfoque considerado, dado el aislamiento de estas trabajadoras, los diversos idiomas que hablan y las sensibilidades del empleo en un hogar privado.
Given the dispersed nature of the domestic work industry and the time and resources required to reach individual workers and their employees, community-based organizations are uniquely positioned to ensure that domestic workers and their employers understand their rights and responsibilities. Enforcement of labor laws for domestic workers requires a thoughtful approach given the isolation of these workers, the various languages they speak, and the sensitivities of employment in a private home.
En las investigaciones sobre cómo proteger las trabajadoras con salarios bajos, existe un consejo de los que la participación de las organizaciones laborales y comunitarias mejoran el cumplimiento en la aplicación de las leyes laborales. Una fuerza laboral organizada es mejor informada sobre las normas de seguridad y salud, los salarios y las horas de trabajo y otras protecciones legales que tienen los trabajadores para las trabajadoras inmigrantes y otros trabajadores que pueden ser especialmente vulnerables a las amenazas de represalias. Los mensajeros confiables de las organizaciones comunitarias desempeñan un papel importante a la hora de abordar el miedo de los trabajadores a denunciar violaciones laborales. Las asociaciones entregan agencias de cumplimiento de las leyes laborales y las organizaciones comunitarias fortalecen el intercambio de información sobre las violaciones comunes en el lugar de trabajo. Los desafíos que enfrentan los trabajadores para acceder a los mecanismos de ampliación de la ley y las mejores prácticas para llegar a los trabajadores.
And if I can ask her, but over time, so if I can ask you to summarize and wrap up. Or are you the one representative from the organization? Okay. Okay, great. Go ahead.
In research of protecting low-wage workers, there is an agreement that the involvement of labor and community-based organization improves labor law compliance and enforcement. An organized workforce is typically better informed about safety and health standards, wage and hour issues, and other legal protection workers have. For immigrant workers and other workers who may be especially vulnerable to threats of retaliation, trusted messengers from community organizations play an important role in addressing workers' fear of reporting labor violations. Partnerships between labor enforcement agencies and community organizations strengthen information sharing about common workplace violations, challenging for workers in accessing enforcement mechanisms and best practices for reaching workers.
A través de programas de subvención para las trabajadoras del hogar de la OAG, el capítulo de DC, la Alianza Nacional de Trabajadoras del Hogar, tiene una subvención para desarrollar y promover materiales educativos para las trabajadoras del hogar, de entidades contratantes y empleadores, incluida información sobre seguridad y salud, dada la dificultad de hacer cumplir los derechos laborales en los hogares privados. Este programa de subvenciones es un mecanismo clave mediante el cual los trabajadores aprenderán sobre sus derechos y recibirán apoyo para hacerlos cumplir.
Through OAG's Domestic Worker Grants Program, the DC chapter of the National Domestic Workers Alliance has a grant to develop and promote educational materials for domestic workers, hiring entities and employers, including safety and health information. Given the unique difficulty of enforcing workplace rights in private homes, this grant program is a key mechanism by which workers will learn about their rights and receive support to enforce them.
A través de la subvención, el personal de la Alianza Nacional de Trabajadoras del Hogar y los líderes trabajadores remunerados que actúan como educadores pares están realizando actividades de alcance y educación directa a las trabajadoras del hogar en todo DC. Ellas te contarán de sus experiencias en sus testimonios.
Through the grant, NDWA staff and stipend worker leaders acting as peer educators are doing direct outreach and education to domestic workers throughout DC, which they will tell you more about it.
También a través de la subvención estamos trabajando con la Universidad de Georgetown para desarrollar normas, capacitación y materiales sobre estándares de seguridad y salud en el lugar de trabajo, específicamente para trabajadoras del hogar. Los materiales incluirán información práctica sobre cómo los trabajadores se pueden mantener seguros en el trabajo y cómo los empleadores pueden garantizar sus hogares sean un lugar de trabajo seguro.
Through the grant, we are also working with Georgetown University to develop guidelines, training, and materials on workplace health and safety standards, especially for domestic workers. The materials will include practical information on how workers can keep themselves safe on the job and how employers can ensure that their homes are a safe workplace.
El fiscal general tiene un papel fundamental para garantizar el éxito de la implementación de esta ley. Nos complace que hayan sido un socio sólido y proactivo. La OAG también creó un sitio web con información centralizada sobre la subvención. A medida que otras agencias crean sus herramientas e información, esperamos que la OAG puedan conectarlas a su sitio de web.
The Office of the Attorney General has a key role in ensuring the success of this law's implementation. We are pleased that they have been a strong and proactive partner. OAG also created a website with centralized information on the grant. As other agencies create their tools and information, we hope OAG will be able to connect to those.
Nuestra organización también está haciendo alcance a los empleadores de trabajadores del hogar. Sin embargo, nuestras miembros son trabajadoras y queremos estar seguras de que no es solo la responsabilidad de las trabajadoras informar a sus empleadores sobre sus responsabilidades. Según la trabajadora informa a sus empleadores sobre la ley, dada la diferencia de poder en la relación laboral. Esperamos que el Consejo, en su presupuesto para el año fiscal 2025, continúe garantizando que la OAG tenga fondos adecuados para brindar la educación y cumplimiento a través de las organizaciones comunitarias y que la OAG otorgue subvenciones a organizaciones que tengan experiencia en alcance a los empleadores, muchas de las cuales aún no se ven a sí mismas como empleadores, para concientizarlos de nuevas responsabilidades según la ley. Esperamos continuar nuestra asociación con la OAG para garantizar que los trabajadores del hogar y los empleadores en todo DC conozcan sus derechos y responsabilidades y tengan acceso significativo a mecanismos de amplificación para garantizar que se respeten estos derechos. Muchas gracias.
Our organization is also doing outreach to employers of domestic workers. However, our primary constituency is workers, and we want to be sure that it is not solely up to workers to let their employers know about their responsibilities under the law, given the power differential in the employment relationship. We hope the Council, in its fiscal year 2025 budget, will continue to ensure that OAG has adequate funding to provide robust education and enforcement through community organizations, and that OAG will give grants to organizations that have expertise reaching employers, many of whom do not yet see themselves as employers, to make them aware of their new responsibilities under the law. We look forward to continuing our partnership with the OAG to ensure that domestic workers and employers across DC understand their rights and responsibilities and have meaningful access to enforcement mechanism to ensure these rights are respected. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Gladys Sandoval, Public Witness.
Buenos días, concejal Pinto. Mi nombre es Gladys Sandoval, soy miembro y líder de la Alianza Nacional de Trabajadoras del Hogar del capítulo de DC. Por más de 25 años me he dedicado a ser trabajadoras del hogar en este país, en el área de Washington, D.C. Yo represento a una de las miles de compañeras que hacen el trabajo de niñeras, limpiadoras de casa y cuidadoras a personas mayores o con necesidades especiales. Un trabajo que demanda mucha responsabilidad, respeto, amor, paciencia y entrega.
Good morning. My name is Gladys Sandoval. I am member and leader of the National Alliance of Domestic Workers, DC chapter. For more than 25 years, I have worked as a domestic worker in this country, in the DC area. I represent one of thousands of nannies, house cleaners, and home caregivers for people who are elderly or have special needs. work that demands a lot of responsibility, respect, love, patience, and determination.
Me siento orgullosa de ser una de las trabajadoras del hogar que luchó para ser incluida en los derechos humanos y tener un contrato escrito, y ser incluida en la salud y seguridad, algo que nos merecemos todas las trabajadoras del hogar de Washington, D.C.
I am proud of being one of the domestic workers who fought to be included in the DC Human Rights Act, have agreed an employment contract, and be included under health and safety laws, something that all domestic workers in Washington, D.C. deserve.
Yo soy una de las personas que está haciendo alcance en D.C., gracias a la subvención del fiscal general OAG. Una de las cosas que escucho más mientras hago alcance es cómo decirles a los empleadores del contrato escrito sin miedo a perder el trabajo al comunicarles nuestros nuevos derechos.
I am one of the people doing outreach in DC, thanks to the Office of the Attorney General's grant program. One of the things that I hear while I do outreach is how to ask employers for a written contract without the fear of losing your job for communicating our rights.
También quiero decirle que trabajando en las casas privadas sí hay riesgo. Como trabajadora del hogar me arriesgo todos los días a tener algún tipo de accidente, por ejemplo, una caída, un resbalón o una quemadura. Recientemente tuve un accidente mientras trabajaba limpiando una casa. Mientras limpiaba el baño, la puerta de la ducha de vidrio se rompió y cayó sobre mi cabeza y me rompió la cabeza. Tuve que seguir trabajando y terminar el trabajo. Mi empleadora no dijo ni hizo nada para ayudarme. Para el colmo, tuve que ir a urgencia por mí misma.
I also want to say that there is a risk with working in private homes. As a domestic worker, I'm at risk every day of having some type of accident. For example, a fall, a slip, or a burn. Recently, I had an accident while cleaning a home. While I was cleaning a bathroom, the glass shower door broke and fell on top of me, breaking my head. I had to keep working and finish the job. To make matters worse, my employer did not say anything. I had to go to urgent care on my own.
Para mí, la salud y seguridad en el trabajo significa que todas las trabajadoras del hogar tengan información de cómo mantenerse segura en el trabajo, y también podrían preguntar a sus empleadores sobre condiciones de trabajo seguro y recibir asistencia si tienen algún tipo de accidente en el trabajo.
For me, health and security at work means that all domestic workers have the information they need to keep themselves safe at work and can also ask their employers for safe working conditions and receive help if there is some accident at work.
Desde que el Consejo de DC aprobó la Carta de Derechos de las Trabajadoras del Hogar, siento que se está creando conciencia de lo importante de la seguridad en el trabajo.
Since the DC Council approved the Domestic Worker Employment Rights Amendment Act of 2022, I have felt that consciousness about the importance of workplace safety is being built.
Como parte de la subvención con OAG, estamos trabajando con la Universidad Georgetown en un manual y entrenamiento sobre cómo mantenerse segura y saludable en el trabajo. Este domingo tuvimos un grupo focal con más de 30 trabajadoras del hogar. Escuchamos de sus experiencias en el trabajo, de dolores de cuerpo, productos de limpieza que les causan alergia, dolores de cabezas, caídas y más. También escuchamos sus consejos y sugerencias. Por ejemplo, cómo hablar con los empleadores sobre riesgos y problemas. Toda información es de los materiales de Georgetown está preparando.
As part of the grant from OAG, we are working with Georgetown University on a manual and training on how to stay safe and healthy at work. This past Sunday, we held a focus group with more than 30 domestic workers. We listened to their experiences at work, body aches, cleaning products that cause allergies and pain, falls, and more. We also listened to their tips and suggestions. For example, how to talk to your employer about risks and problems. All of this information will go into the materials that Georgetown is preparing.
Ahora le voy a compartir un poco de mi experiencia haciendo alcances. Como primer grupo del capítulo de DC, con la NDWA, con la subvención, nos tocó lo más difícil, el invierno. A nosotras nos dieron 7 horas pagados por semana. Esto incluye meeting como entrenamiento, aprendizaje, etcétera, etcétera. Y 3 horas de alcance. Al principio, cuando empecé a hacer alcance, me fue re mal. Recuerdo el primer día que salí de mi casa a las 9 de la mañana y volví a las 5 de la tarde. Y solo encontré una nani en el parque. Después fue el mal tiempo, por ejemplo, lluvia, nieve y así sucesivamente fui aprendiendo. Entonces, opté por biblioteca y chequeando los story time de las bibliotecas, como encontré muchas nani y muy interesada en saber de sus derechos. La agencia de DC, DOEC y OHR dieron un taller de Conoces tus derechos virtual a las trabajadoras del hogar que conocimos, pero fueron las mismas nanis que me sugirieron que diéramos un taller presencial porque no habían entendido mucho el taller. Entonces trabajamos duro y dimos el taller de Conoces tus derechos presencial el domingo pasado, lo cual fue todo un éxito.
And I want to tell you a little bit about my experiences doing outreach. As the first group doing outreach with the DC chapter of NDWA under this grant, we had a more difficult time in the winter. We are given 7 paid hours a week, including meetings and trainings, learning, and also 3 hours for outreach. At first, when I began doing outreach, it went badly. I remember the first day I went out. I left my house at 9 a.m. and returned at 5 p.m. And I only found one nanny in the park. After that, the weather was bad. It was raining, snowing, but I learned from that. So I opted to go to the libraries to check story times at the libraries. Checking the story times at the libraries was how I found many nannies, and they were very interested in knowing about their rights. DC agencies, such as Department of Employment Services and the Office of Human Rights, gave a virtual Know Your Rights workshop to domestic workers we found through outreach. But these same nannies encouraged us to give an in-person workshop because they had not really understood the workshop. So we worked hard and gave a Know Your Rights in-person workshop last Sunday. It was a complete success.
Excuse me, I'm very sorry. You're 2 minutes over. We're gonna have to move on to the next panelist, but we'll come back to you for some questions. Okay, we've got a lot of witnesses today, so I can't go over for everybody. So if I can ask everybody's help to stay on track. As a reminder, public witnesses have 3 minutes, but we're giving you all double the time for 6 minutes. Thank you very much. Rosemary Tarico. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Do you want to share with her what I said?
Lo mío es corto. Sí, no, lo mío es corto. Okay, sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Okay, buenos días. Mi nombre es Rosemary Torrico, miembro de la Alianza Nacional de Trabajadoras del Hogar del capítulo de DC.
Good morning, I'm Rosemary Torrico, member of the National Alliance of Domestic Workers DC chapter.
Como ya dijeron anteriormente, en el año 2022 obtuvimos la Carta de los Derechos de las Trabajadoras del Hogar para el Distrito de Columbia, que favorecerá a más de 9,000 trabajadoras del hogar, como serdineras, limpiadoras de casa, cuidadoras de adultos mayores, y también estar incluida en la Ley de los Derechos Humanos.
As they said before, in December 2022, when the full DC Council passed the Domestic Workers' Right Bill, this law helps now 9,000 workers, including nannies, house cleaners, and home healthcare workers for the elderly through an employment contract, health and safety at work, and inclusion in the DC Human Rights Act.
Esta ley es muy, muy importante porque se van a tener contratos de trabajo y una seguridad de salud y en el trabajo. Personalmente participé junto a muchísimas otras compañeras de las acciones diferentes que hicimos ante el Consejo para obtener esta carta y que sea aprobada. Actualmente soy parte del equipo de liderazgo que con fondos de la Oficina del Fiscal estamos implementando esta carta de las trabajadoras del hogar.
Personally, I actively participated along with many of my fellow workers to ensure that this law was approved. And currently, I am part of the leadership team that, with funds from the Office of the Attorney General, is working on the implementation of this law, with the goal that as many domestic workers as possible.
Estamos trabajando con la implementación de esta carta y nuestro objetivo es hacer llegar al mayor número de trabajadoras del hogar el conocimiento de esta ley.
We are trying to do the outreach and have as many domestic workers be able to be included in this act.
Y para esto hacemos alcance.
And that's why we do outreach.
¿Y cómo hacemos el alcance?
And how do we do the outreach?
Visitamos parques, iglesias, bibliotecas, paradas de buses, diferentes lugares donde podamos encontrar trabajadoras del hogar.
We are visiting parks, libraries, churches, bus stops, and places where we can find workers.
Llegamos hasta las trabajadoras y les entregamos unos panfletos que están explicando la ley tanto en español como en inglés.
So we meet the workers and we hand them over flyers that are in English and Spanish, and those flyers explain the law.
Sabemos que en este momento, especialmente las niñeras, están cuidando niños y no tienen tiempo para hablar mucho con uno.
We are aware that nannies are taking care of kids and they don't have much time to talk to us.
Si ella lo permite, tomamos el número de teléfono, el nombre, y le preguntamos en qué hora podemos hablar con ella.
If they let us, we ask them for their contact information, names, phone numbers, and we ask them, what time would it work for you if we call you?
Si ella lo permite, tomamos sus datos en estas tarjetas para después poder conversar, llamarlas y poder conversar.
So we get their contact information, so later on we can contact them and we can talk to them.
Generalmente estas llamadas las realizamos después de las 5 de la tarde y muchas de ellas toman confianza y nos cuentan de sus diferentes dificultades y problemas que tienen en el trabajo.
Usually we make those phone calls after 5 p.m. and they share with us about the difficulties at the workplace with us.
Hay muchos testimonios. Por ejemplo, voy a contar uno que pasó hace poquito de una trabajadora que se enfermó de COVID en el trabajo y
There are so many testimonies, and I'm going to share one. There was an employee that got sick with COVID.
ella se contagió en la casa y la mandaron a descansar por una semana.
She got COVID while working at the house, and they sent her back at home to rest for a week.
Y cuando volvió de nuevo, los jefes no le pagaron nada, no reconocieron sus días de trabajo. Ella llorando, muy triste, me dice, yo necesito dinero para pagar mi renta, mis hijos. Una triste realidad.
When she went back to work, her bosses did not pay her for the days that she could not work. And she told me, I need that money. I need that money for my children to pay my rent. And that was a sad reality.
Estamos haciendo alcance a las trabajadoras del hogar para que conozcan la ley, pero también es necesario, como ya decían anteriormente, que esta ley sea conocida por los empleadores. Y para eso pedimos que se utilicen todos los mecanismos que ofrece la tecnología, porque es importante que ellos también la conozcan.
We are doing outreach to domestic workers so that they know the law, but it's also important that this law is known by employers as well, using all methods technology allows, because that's also important for them to know it.
También hay preocupación de parte de las empleadoras, de las empleadas, que al pedir un contrato, ellas pierdan el trabajo y tienen miedo de hacerlo.
Domestic workers are worried about how their bosses will react when they find out about this law for domestic workers, and they are afraid that they might lose their job.
En enero del 2024 entró en vigencia lo de los contratos y también en mi experiencia de alcance, muchas niñeras no hablan el español ni tampoco el inglés perfecto. Son inmigrantes de África que tienen sus propios idiomas, que estos contratos sean hechos en diferentes idiomas.
In January of this year, the second part of the law became effective. And also another important thing is that the same contract should be in languages apart English and Spanish. I have been meeting immigrant domestic workers from African countries who don't speak Spanish and have a limited English.
El contrato debe ser claro con las
And can I ask you to wrap up as
obligaciones
well,
de-
please?
Está
Thank
bien.
you.
Gracias.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Susel Marita, who's joining us virtually.
Hola, buenos días.
Good morning.
Good morning. We can hear you.
Mi nombre es Susel y soy miembro y líder de la Alianza Nacional de Trabajadoras del Hogar del capítulo de DC.
Hello, my name is Suzelle, and I'm a member and leader of the National Alliance of Domestic Workers, DC chapter.
Yo trabajo como niñera en el vecindario de Chevy Chase y he trabajado como niñera por 18 años. Siempre he disfrutado mucho del trabajo que realizo porque amo a los niños. Siempre me preocupo mucho porque tengan una buena educación y sepan del respeto y los valores que son tan importantes en la sociedad y que se han perdido. Al igual que me preocupo mucho porque tengan una buena alimentación y aprendan a comer de todo para que sean niños saludables.
I work as a nanny in DC's Chevy Chase neighborhood. I have worked as a nanny for 18 years. I really enjoy taking care of kids. I have always really enjoyed the work that I do because I love children. I am always concerned that they have a good education, know of respect, and the values that are so important in our society and that have been lost. At the same time, I'm concerned that they are well fed and learn to eat everything so that they can be healthy children.
Durante la pandemia pudimos demostrar que somos empleadas esenciales y aún poniendo en riesgo nuestra salud y la salud de nuestras familias, estuvimos ahí día a día y gracias a nuestro trabajo, todos pudieron seguir trabajando sin preocuparse por sus seres queridos.
During the pandemic, we showed that we are essential workers and though we risk our health and that of our families, we were there day in day. And thanks to our work, everyone could continue working without worrying about their loved ones.
Por muchos años he visto las injusticias que han pasado muchas de las compañeras. Es injusto ver cómo las personas que estamos a cargo de los seres que más aman tengamos que sufrir tantos abusos por parte de los empleadores que no valoran el trabajo que realizamos. He visto tantos casos donde compañeras embarazadas han tenido que seguir trabajando aún con estados muy avanzados por el miedo a perder su trabajo. Muchas de ellas no han contado con los permisos necesarios para atender sus citas médicas y han tenido que seguir realizando labores muy pesadas. Muchas han sido despedidas y otras han tenido que tomarse pocos días para estar con sus bebés sin goce de sueldo. Y esto es algo inhumano que debe cambiar, porque todos merecemos ser tratados con dignidad y respeto.
For many years, I have seen the injustices that my colleagues have faced. It's unfair to see that the people who are responsible for those you love the most have to suffer so much abuse from employers who do not value their work, the work that we do. I have seen so many cases of pregnant colleagues who had to continue working even with a very advanced pregnancy for fear of losing their job. Many of them did not have permission to go to prenatal appointments and had to continue doing very demanding tasks. Many have been fired and others had to take only a few days to be with their babies without pay and this is not humane and should change because we all deserve to be treated with dignity and respect.
Siempre pensé en buscar una manera de cambiar la historia nuestra, y fue por ello que me involucré en la lucha desde el 2017 y logramos que el Consejo de Washington, D.C. en diciembre del 2022 pasara la Carta de Derechos de Trabajadoras del Hogar, y estoy feliz de ser parte de este movimiento. Una parte es mi rol de organizadora voluntaria, donde hago alcance a las trabajadoras del hogar gracias a una subvención de la Oficina Fiscal General, para asegurar que las trabajadoras del hogar conozcan sus derechos. Con mucho esfuerzo salgo cada día a los parques a brindar información sobre los derechos que hemos ganado para ir poco a poco acabando con tanto abuso.
I always thought about looking for a way to change our history. It was for that reason that I got involved in the campaign in 2017, and in December of 2022, we achieved our goals when the DC Council passed the Domestic Workers Employment Rights Act, and I'm happy to be part of this movement. One important part is my role as a volunteer organizer, where I do outreach to domestic workers thanks to a grant from the Office of the Attorney General to ensure that domestic workers know their rights. With a lot of effort, we go out each day to parks to share information about the rights we have won, to little by little, to end so much abuse.
Entre los derechos más importantes que hemos ganado es el derecho a tener un contrato de empleo por cualquier trabajo que realicemos por más de 5 horas al mes. Y es algo que necesitamos que más personas sepan, porque al tenerlo todo por escrito podemos exigir que se nos respete lo acordado. Sabemos que las trabajadoras del hogar tienden a escuchar a otras trabajadoras del hogar. Ellas confían en nosotros, y debido a que nos asociamos con agencias de la ciudad y abogados, ellas saben que pueden contar con nosotras.
One of the most important rights that we won is the right to have an employment contract for any job that we do for more than 5 hours a month. This is something that we need to make sure more people know about, because by having everything in writing, we can demand that the agreement is respected. We know that domestic workers tend to listen to other domestic workers. They trust us. And given that we associate with the city agencies and attorneys, they know that they can count on us.
El domingo pasado tuvimos la oportunidad de brindar un taller sobre Conozca sus derechos aquí en DC. Fue aplaudido y bien recibido por compañeras que no tenían ni idea de que esta ley existe, y están felices de que ahora puedan exigir un contrato escrito. Muchas de ellas no cuentan con uno y quieren conocer más y encontrar los ejemplos para que puedan usarlos en futuros trabajos. En el taller pudimos escuchar muchas de las inquietudes que tienen las trabajadoras del hogar, y hemos visto cómo sigue habiendo mucha injusticia. También pudimos ver el interés de las compañeras por aprender más sobre esta Carta de Derechos, y hemos pedido que ellas también alcen la voz, y así todas juntas lograr que más trabajadoras del hogar se enteren y pongan en práctica lo aprendido en el taller. En esa oportunidad, 60 trabajadoras del hogar participaron, 47 estuvieron de manera presencial y 13 por Zoom. Creemos que es importante seguir educando a nuestras compañeras, y sabemos que el seguir dando estos talleres y seguir haciendo alcance va a ayudar a que más personas sepan de esta ley, y que poco a poco los empleadores vayan conociendo que ahora hay una ley que nos ampara y que es nuestro derecho tener un contrato escrito.
This past Sunday, we had the opportunity to provide the Know Your Rights workshop in DC. It was applauded and well received by colleagues who had no idea that this law existed. And they are happy that they can now demand a written contract. Many of them do not have one and want to know more and find examples that they can use for future work. In the workshop, we listened to domestic workers' concern and have seen that there continues to be a lot of injustice. We can also see their interest in learning more about the Bill of Rights. We also ask that they raise their voices so that together we can ensure that more domestic workers learn about and put into practice what was learned in the workshop. 60 domestic workers participated in this workshop, 47 in person and 13 through Zoom. We believe that it's very important to continue educating our colleagues and know that by continuing to give these workshops and do outreach, it will help more people know about the law. Little by little, employers will learn that now there is that law that protects us, and that is our right to have a written contract.
Thank
Poco
you.
a poco podemos cambiar la historia.
Thank you all very much. I'm so sorry. Everyone's been very overtime. So I'm gonna have to end the testimony there, but I really appreciate it. And make sure that you submit your full testimony for the record, so that we can review it in full. I do want to ask, but please go ahead and then I'll.
Yeah, I already did.
Oh, okay. I want to ask, a number of you spoke about the outreach, and I'm thrilled to see you all back. And, you know, we worked with many of you to make sure that this bill was passed and that the grant was funded. But in your outreach efforts, what are some of the best practices that you've found? I know you talked about, you know, bus stops or libraries or locating people, but in actually making sure that people understand their rights, what has worked best?
Sí. Ahora en la temporada de invierno, que hace mucho frío, llegamos a los parques y no hay. Personalmente yo no sabía de que las niñeras van en las bibliotecas públicas, hay espacios donde ellas se reúnen con los bebés, los niños que cuidan. Entonces llegamos a las bibliotecas y sí, tratamos de conversar una a una con ellas y como digo, llevamos estos panfletos, tanto en inglés como en español, para informarles muy así rápidamente.
During the winter time, considering that it's cold outside, there's no people outdoors. So we didn't know that in public libraries, there are spaces where nannies gather, and that's where they usually take care of the kids. So we were able to talk to them one-on-one, and we also handed them these pamphlets, which we were able to get in Spanish and in English. So we were able to explain them what's in these pamphlets.
Y tomamos, si ella permite, generalmente aceptan, anotamos el nombre, su teléfono, y mucha gente vive en Maryland, en Virginia, pero trabaja aquí en DC. Y preguntamos a qué hora podemos llamarla.
If they allow us, we usually gather their contact information, such as name and phone number. So they usually give us their contact information. And most of them, they live in Maryland and Virginia, but they do work in Washington, D.C.
Y si llamamos, personalmente llamo después de las 5 y mantenemos una conversación. Invitamos a los talleres que están habiendo, como el domingo pasado hubo un taller Conozca sus derechos y fue muy exitoso. Hubieron más de 60 personas.
We usually call them after 5 p.m. We chat with them and we invite them to our workshops. And we invited them to our workshop that took place last Sunday, and it was called Know Your Rights.
Ahora, por el tiempo de frío, bibliotecas, yo creo que en el verano, en la primavera, ya serán los parques y también las paradas de buses.
Right now, due to the cold weather, we usually go to the libraries, but I assume that in the springtime or even in the summertime, we will go to the bus stops or even to parks.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Déjeme agregar algo bien pequeñito. Es bien difícil a veces encontrarlas, pero lo que yo he escuchado después de que ellas hacen esto, y hay muchas que tienen miedo. Pero sí es un poco, creo que lo que más les ha funcionado es que son mismas trabajadoras del hogar y pasan la voz a voz, ¿no? Es como que aunque tienen miedo, por ejemplo, Gladys le dice a una y después se esconden o algo así, pero después la otra compañera le dice a la otra. Entonces esto es creo, lo más efectivo, la voz a voz entre ellas mismas.
Sometimes it's very difficult to find them, but you know, what I've realized is that a lot of them are afraid. But considering that many of them are in the same field, domestic workers, they usually pass word to mouth, and that's the way to do the outreach. In my experience, that's the most effective way.
Sí, perdón, a mí me gustaría añadir algo más. Como experiencia que yo estuve ahora en DC, gracias a estos alcances yo me recorrí toda la biblioteca de DC. Y entonces pude hablar con muchas nannies, chequeando los horarios de story time, de una biblioteca, pasar de una a otra y tratar de encontrarla, porque es difícil encontrar y hablar con las nannies. Entonces, en mi experiencia, ellas sí me comunicaron mucho que el problema más duro que ellos tienen es el robo de salario, porque tienen un acuerdo verbal. Entonces, al tener un acuerdo verbal, ellas, los empleadores les ponen más trabajos y al final tienen que terminar el trabajo haciéndolo. Y eso es un caso que se está viviendo. También el miedo de perder el trabajo al comunicarle a los trabajadores de sus derechos.
I would like to add something else. I was doing the outreach in DC. I went to many of DC's public libraries. I made sure I checked the story time schedules. And one of the things that most of the nannies told me is that they usually don't have a verbal agreement. So what they told me is that usually their employers take advantage of that, and they usually ask them to work more and more hours. So usually these nannies are afraid to lose their jobs if they tell them, their employers, about their own rights.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your testimony and thank you for all the work that you do to make sure that people know about their rights in the city. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to us.
We're now going to call our next panel of public witnesses. Therese Turner. If I can ask you to sit all the way to my right, first person I call. Ruth Wilcox. Stephanie Perry. Chris Weiss. McKenna Osborne. Lorenzo Sanders. We are going to start with Therese Turner, public witness.
Okay. Good morning, Chairperson Brooke Pinto and esteemed committee members. I am Cerisi Lane Turner, Miss Senior District of Columbia 2023 and Senior Ambassador for the Department of Aging and Community Living, representing and advocating for the well-being of over 100,000 senior residents. I am here today to express my support for the remarkable work undertaken by the Office of the Attorney General for the District of Columbia's Civil Rights and Elder Justice Section, specifically in their tireless efforts to safeguard and educate our seniors against scams and financial exploitation. I contacted the Office of the Attorney General to collaborate on my platform and initiative, which focuses on disseminating crucial information regarding fraud, financial exploitation, and the prevention of artificial intelligence scams to protect our senior population. In 2022, the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center documented a staggering 88,262 complaints of fraud from individuals 60 and above, leading to substantial losses amounting to $3.1 billion. These alarming statistics underscore the urgent need for proactive measures and education to protect our seniors from evolving threats in the digital landscape. Therefore, I invited the OAG to partner with me to conduct presentations to educate our seniors on how they can avoid these scams. The presentation by OAG's David Martinez's and his team was not only informative, but also highly engaging and interactive. Mr. Martinez's team demonstrated a keen understanding of the issues at hand and a commitment to raising awareness effectively. In conclusion, I extend my sincere gratitude to the Office of the Attorney General, Civil Rights and Elder Justice Section for their exemplary efforts in protecting seniors from scams and providing valuable educational resources. Thank you for your time and dedication to this important cause.
Thank you very much, Ms. Turner. Chris Weiss, Executive Director of the DC Environmental Network.
Hard to follow that. Lots of good energy. Good morning, environmental colleagues, Chairperson Pinto and staff, Office of Attorney General. My name is Chris Weiss and I direct the activities of the DC Environmental Network. I'm submitting testimony on the performance of the DC Office of the independently elected Attorney General. It's been a year since we welcomed the newly elected Attorney General Brian L. Schwab at last year's Performance Oversight hearing. The AG's activities our movement has noticed during the time of the Attorney General's first term include a hearty congratulations to Attorney General Schwab and his team for securing over $57 million from PEPCO to resolve allegations at its Benning Road facility, Buzzard Point facility, and its 60,000 transformer vault and manhole system discharged toxic chemicals into the district's land and waterways for decades, resulting in the persistent toxic pollution of the Anacostia River. This is possibly the largest environmental settlement in DC's history, excuse me. The DC Environmental Network serves as Mayor Bowser's The DC Environment Network serves on Mayor Bowser's Leadership Council for a Cleaner Anacostia River, and river folk are excited that with this settlement, the district can now strongly move forward with sediment cleanup in the Anacostia River and will not be dependent upon an appropriated capital budget. Litigation that has often delayed urban river cleanups around the country, including in New York City, has been avoided. In addition to the $57 million, PEPCO has agreed to remediate the river bottom of the Buzzard Point and Benning Road facilities. This is all good news. The DC Environmental Network, along with the Office of People's Counsel and others, work to reduce inequitable utility ratepayer impacts in the Solar Expansion Act of 2022 to the tune of around $1.8 billion. We take our responsibility to make sure environmental programs and policies don't hurt the most vulnerable DC residents very seriously. We were happy to hear that the DC Public Service Commission denied PEPCO's request to rate base the river bottom cleanup at the Benning Road facility, which bodes well for the river sediment cleanup and supports environmental justice. The DC Environmental Network is concerned that other costs in this current $57 million settlement and further remediation expenses may be unjustly hoisted on the backs of struggling DC utility ratepayers. Maybe this is more of a question because I don't have a handle on all the aspects of the Office of Attorney General's efforts. I just want to make sure we protect the strength of this settlement and future efforts by fully embracing environmental justice principles from the beginning of this process until the end. It is our understanding that the district still seeks to recover its investigation costs, natural resources damages, and any future monitoring and additional remediation costs from PEPCO and other responsible parties. We certainly hope this will happen. More broadly, DC is concerned during what will probably be a challenging budget cycle that there may be some way the mayor and even the council might raid these settlement dollars and direct them away from their stated environmental justice purposes. If that happens, we'll make that a priority of our budget advocacy. We are also hoping that at least some of the $10 million in penalties from the settlement that may be retained by the Office of Attorney General be used in support of the environmental justice principles that inspired the office's efforts in the first place and resulted in a successful settlement. In the past, the DC Office of Attorney General has had to rely on grants and limited dollars to do its important environmental protection work. Hopefully, this settlement can inspire OAG to grow its environmental protection infrastructure, maybe even set up a formal environmental justice division. The DC Office of Attorney General should be proud of their work, as we are, and inspired and motivated to prioritize the defense of our city and planet's fragile, disappearing environment. We are also thankful for the DC Office of Attorney General's efforts to represent the district government's environmental interests before the DC Public Service Commission. Working with the Department of Energy and Environment, as well as the Office of People's Counsel. You know, I'm an organization. Do I get 2 more on that?
We set you at 5 minutes, so you have a
Okay.
little more time.
Sorry. Working with the Department of Energy and Environment, as well as the Office of People's Counsel, the DCOEG has brought legal and technical resources to bear that the environmental movement just does not have. The result has been progress in defense of the district's electrification efforts and has even resulted in protecting ratepayers from unjust Washington gas rate increases. Well, I think that's going to round me up, but I timed it differently this morning. Oh, well. But we're very proud of the Office of Attorney General. They really accelerated their environmental work, and we just wanted to make sure that they know we support what they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Weiss, for being here, and thank you for testifying each year on the environmental work that OAG does that I think doesn't always get talked about as much as some of the other divisions and is very important. So appreciate you being here. McKenna Osborne, Policy Attorney for the Children's Law Center.
Good morning, Chairwoman Pinto. My name is McKenna Osborne. I'm a policy attorney at Children's Law Center and a resident of Ward 2. I'm testifying today on behalf of Children's Law Center. Our more than 100 staff work with children, families, and partners across the district toward a future where every child can grow up with a strong foundation of family, health, and education. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today regarding the performance of the Office of the Attorney General. At Children's Law Center, our work often intersects with that of OAG, both in individual cases involving our clients and in the development and implementation of the laws and policies that will impact them. My testimony today will speak to that intersection in 3 areas: school attendance, the child welfare system, and protections for tenants. On school attendance, absenteeism has long been a challenge for the district, and we've appreciated recent attention on this issue from the executive and the council. The district has developed several tools to address student disengagement, and OAG has played an important role in creating a system that focuses on supporting students and families in overcoming barriers to attendance. For years, OAG has recognized that prosecution is not an effective means of improving attendance. Instead, OAG is more focused on proactive approaches to reduce truancy that address the actual barriers causing kids to miss school. This strategy is consistent with trends seen across the country and evidence on what approaches are more likely to improve school attendance. Over the past year, we've been very glad to see Attorney General Schwab and his team continue to treat truancy referrals as an opportunity to support rather than prosecute students and families facing barriers to attendance. Regarding the child welfare system, at any given time, Children's Law Center represents approximately half of the children involved with the DC Child and Family Services Agency, CFSA. Through this casework, we interact daily with OAG's Family Services Division. OAG, under the leadership of Erin Cullen, the Deputy Attorney General of the Family Services Division, meets regularly with our policy team to discuss both policy and practice issues arising in our child welfare work. We greatly value the open communication and problem-solving opportunities provided by these meetings and commend OAG's consistent participation and openness during them. Over the past year, OAG has worked closely with Children's Law Center on several initiatives intended to mitigate harms to children and family caused by child welfare involvement, including the expungement of certain child protection register records, the development of a new permanency option designed to better meet the specific needs of older foster youth, and CFSA's efforts to repurpose the district's 211 warm line as a unified social service resource and referral line, with the goal of meeting families in need with resources rather than separating children from their families. We commend OAG for all of the work it is doing to support CFSA and try to make the district's child welfare system work better for children and families. On tenant protections, OAG's Public Advocacy Division plays a critical role in holding housing providers accountable for violating district laws intended to protect the rights and well-being of tenants. While legal service providers like Children's Law Center assist individual tenants with claims against their landlords, OAG can address poor conditions at an entire property or discriminatory practices across a housing portfolio's entire portfolio through one lawsuit. OAG litigation is an important enforcement tool for securing meaningful remedies for district tenants and effectively deterring bad actors from violating the law in the first place. The social justice section and civil rights and elder justice sections within OAG's public advocacy division are valued partners in our efforts to promote safe, healthy, and affordable rental housing in the district. Children's Law Center looks forward to continuing to collaborate with OAG in the coming year. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Ms. Osborne. Lorenzo Sanders, Site Supervisor at Alliance of Concerned Men.
Good morning, Ms. Putin. I've did this testimony for about the past 2 years. So this morning, I'm going to speak on behalf of one of my colleagues, Kenneth Gardner, who couldn't be here, that was supposed to be here to speak this morning. Good morning, good afternoon to all. Chairman Putin, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share my personal testimony, my view on public safety. My name is Kenneth Gardner. I am a senior outreach worker for the Ward 7, Benton Site, Benton Terrace, and Benton Park community. I am currently employed by the Alliance of Concerned Men here in Washington, D.C. While being employed for ACM, I assist with the OAG with its nonviolence approach to gun violence in our city. Cure the Streets, entitled Cure the Streets. I have been a part of this work structure and the way of living for the past 5 years. Since this program has been actively in my community, we have only had 4 random gun-related fatalities in our target areas. While the number fluctuates throughout the entire city, shooting-related crimes have been interrupted, de-escalated, and forgotten about in many cases. These particular mentions aren't often spoken. This work that we are performing is brave, courage, thoughtfully love, and leadership, leading our youth towards a better, safer way of life, shedding light on a beautiful, loving way of life. I carry a caseload of 12 young men currently. I've helped 10 of them out of high school, 1 headed to junior college to play football this spring. 6 have been employed, with 5 of them still working. 2 of the young men now have their own apartments inside the community. 1 has since been enrolled by himself and President's DC Central Kitchen, studying the food of arts, handling hours. We need more of these things going on in our city. Not to mention, I've helped 4 young men close to our supervisor even earlier on the time of success. These type of stories that have developed from the rebound of poverty, from their parents in the inner city households, the rules and guidelines that housing residents have to follow, maintain control of their units, and be in compliance. In some states, felons cannot remain on the property as living residents. These are dads, sons, brothers, sisters, mothers, etc. Sounds harsh though. These are decisions that some are faced with, along with not having enough to get by. It becomes challenging for many. Cure the Streets and OAG have brought the big boy hope and faith back to our community. Change is helping in certain areas. I personally thank Mr. Brian Swart and Gabby at the OAG office. I also would like to thank Mr. Tyrone Parker for believing in our community when others just spoke on the change. And I would also like to thank Corey Racine, LaShona, and I mean, for when we first started 5 years ago, they gave us the opportunity to change the norms in our community. Even though we was doing the work already, it just gave us a boost of energy to be able to see that somebody seeing us, that we can change and do things. We was once a part of the problem. Now we're trying to change the norms in our community. And most of the kids that's there now, their parents probably grew up with us. Some of their parents are deceased. So it helps us. They're helping us help them. And we are really dedicated. Like the people on my team, we are born and raised in these communities. And yes, some of us have moved out of the communities, but we still have family there. We still have kids that look up to us. We still go to these schools and we do the work outside of the job. So even when we are off the clock, we're still at the schools, we're still at the basketball games, we're still at the parents' houses, we're still talking to these kids, we still do certain things. I've even taken some of the kids to different states because they haven't even left Southeast, let alone come downtown to a museum. So I've had the opportunity to be able to take them to New York, to see Town Square, to the Museum of Illusion. You know, I took some of them to the African American Museum. They don't know anything outside of the community unless us in the community is helping. And a lot of their parents, either they work or they don't work or they on drugs, which also was our parents. So we know the dynamics of what we are doing has to work. Like, we're not saying, oh, we're trying to make this work. It has to work. Because if it doesn't work, we're gonna be doing the same thing over and over again. Thank you for my time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sanders, and thank you to everybody on this panel. It's notable you each kind of spoke about different work streams within the Office of the Attorney General, which speaks to a slice of how broad the work that they do is and how many different people it touches. But I want to start with you, Mr. Sanders. I know you were speaking in part on behalf of your colleague, but as someone who—
My colleague who just walked in.
Oh, who just walked in. Okay.
Yes.
Hello. I wanted to ask you about what's been most successful. You said that you have about 12 young people that you work with, and I think some of the examples are really powerful of having mentorship, having a positive adult interaction of exposure to other museums and other things. But in terms of providing a young person with another path, what have you found is the most helpful message to kind of get through to a young person?
For us, truthfully, you have to be consistent with being there. So we can always talk about, we can take you somewhere, we can provide you with resources or money to get to school or food in your mouth. But if you are not there, actually physically there with them, to talk to them and do stuff with them, it's like it's going to one out the other. Because at the end of the day, they're outside in them communities. They're the ones that's gonna carry whatever weapon they're gonna carry. They're the ones that's gonna defend themselves if somebody come to the neighborhood shooting. It's them. So if you not really, you can talk it. You can talk it all day. I can sit here and talk it all day. But if I'm not right there with them and I'm not showing them like what's really going on, you know, it's plenty of times where I go to see my mom and then some of them, it's 9:30. They still outside. Why you not in school? I'm waiting on my Uber. No, you're not. Come on, let's go. I'm taking them to school. I'm not even on the clock yet, but I'm taking them to school because you can't just, this is not an 8-hour job. This is a 24, 7 days, 365 days job, whereas though you have to really put the work in with being in the community. Like, we can be in the community and we can just sit there, we can have all these events and all that, but you still have to show them. And I try to show them my perspective, right? I done been in a position where as though I had to go to jail. I done been in a position where as though I was going to school. I was supposed to go to Duke Ellington. I didn't go to Duke Ellington. I went to the neighborhood school because that was the thing to do. That was the it thing to do. When I could have been in Duke Ellington playing the violin and making something of myself right now. Whereas I could be making money or my kids could be. So I'm showing them like, this is what I went through. This is not what I want you to go through. And there's different schools that you can go to besides being in a neighborhood school, always getting into fights or following on this person and drugs. It's a different path, and it's the way you talk to them. You got to meet them where they at. You can't never talk down to them. Never talk down to them because that's going to steer them in a different direction. Meet them where they at and let them and understand where they're coming from. One of the young men, I just saw him, and it was an incident where I know what he's doing. I know it's wrong. I know his parents. I know what they're doing and what they're not doing. And I'm not going to judge him or judge them on their dynamic. What I'm going to do is do my part. I gave him my number. He calls me. He might need something to eat. He might need a ride. He wants to do this. He wants to do that. And I'm doing all those things. Even though I know he has parents that's capable, they might not be willing to do, but they're capable of doing it. Their mindset is somewhere else. And I can't judge them on their mindset being somewhere else. But because I come from that, and my grandmother is one of the ones in the community that like everybody can come into our house, everybody can do this. So I just feel like I have to, this is my calling. Like, I can be driving a dump truck, I can be working at Metro, I can be doing all these other things, but I feel like doing this work is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I go home with that to let my kids know, my wife know, everybody know, like, I understand this is my family too. I have to come home to a family. I have to make sure my kids doing the right thing. But at the same time, I love the work that I do when it comes to the kids in our community. That's just a passion for me.
Well, thank you so much for doing that work. I know it is difficult work and is making such an impact. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ms. Osborne, I want to ask you about some of the CFSA work with OAG, and as we think about truancy and being more holistic and thoughtful with our school support teams in showing up, providing support and services to kids and families who aren't showing up to school. How do you think that work should interact with CFSA? And should it be different than the current model, which is more of a abuse and neglect avenue versus a support avenue?
Thank you. So in our work, we think that the programs that have been the most successful in terms of reducing truancy and actually increasing attendance and engagement in schools are those that take an approach of providing supportive services. So we've seen success with the Department of Human Services, Alternatives to Court Experience, and Parent and Adolescent Support Services, ACE and PASS. And those they really address root causes. They develop action plans with students and families. They're providing follow-up with students and families to see what's working for them, what can be improved. And right now, referrals to ACE can only be made through MPD or OAG. And only OAG refers to PASS. And we think that it could be helpful to remove OAG as that middle step because don't need to rely on OAG to make the referral. If schools who've already identified the student as in need of truancy intervention are able to refer directly to ACE and PASS, we think that could be a more effective tool and use of resources.
Okay. Well, thank you for that idea. And I guess ACE in particular, 54% of ACE referrals don't show up. And so what are you seeing with your clients, not just for the reasons for that, but what do we do if someone is referred to this program, over half of them aren't showing up? Doesn't there need to be a next step when that happens?
I think we would be happy to follow up with your office with some more concrete suggestions and information about that based on our experiences. But in general, our belief is that if you build a program that is engaging and meeting people where they're at and helping them, then they will want to engage with it. So working on how do we improve the programs to increase engagement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Weiss, you've been doing this work for many years, and I wanted to ask, as we see an increase in environmental related litigation, do you find that it has a deterrent impact on utilities or businesses that are otherwise changing their behavior as a result of some of this litigation?
I mean, if you just look at the example that I mostly spoke to with Pepco, I mean, they're gonna be presenting the resources as long as they don't pass it on to ratepayers. We're really concerned about that, but we're going to be able to transform the Anacostia River. And one of the things that environments often have when we litigate is, and I've kind of thought about that with the Office of Attorney General, is like it's like they're fishing for a settlement sometimes with certain corporations on multiple different issues. And I sometimes wonder is once the settlement made, I don't understand the process as much as maybe the Children's Law Center might, but you know, is that I mean, you hope that when those settlements come down after actions are taken, that it truly reflects the appropriate response to whatever the environmental ill that that corporation or business has wrought on our environment. But we have a really great example now with this settlement with Pepco, and it seems like it's an honest and meaningful response to the decades of polluting our rivers, and so in that sense it works. I would probably guess that broadly corporations tend to get away with that continue to get away with causing harm to the environment, even if they do make a deal because of action taken by a Attorney General's office. I mean, I guess that's all I would have to say on it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Ms. Turner, thank you for highlighting the important work that OAG does with seniors. And one of the things that I really worry about as relates to senior fraud and sexual abuse, that we see a disproportionate impact on our seniors, is how we can do a more proactive job about educating seniors and their families about what rights they have and what protections they have, and how to look out for some warning signs. Are there ways that you have worked with OAG or could continue working with OAG to improve that education for the community?
Yes, yes. I've worked with the OAG and AARP and the Legal Counsel for the Elderly, and they all work to educate and give tools to seniors on how to protect themselves and prevent being scammed and fraud. Also, when I do these presentations, they're also offered virtually as well. So those seniors who cannot find transportation or to these senior wellness centers and they're homebound, they're able to participate and, with these virtual presentations and in-person presentations. But I will contact the OAG to see what more we can do. So far, this is what I've been doing, is these presentations throughout many different wards in DC at the senior wellness centers, where I do in-person and it's also virtual. So again, I've worked with OAG, AARP, and the Legal Counsel for the Elderly, and all three, I'm sure we can come up with something more that can spread the word and help seniors more broadly be able to protect themselves.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ms. Turner. Thank you all very much for your testimony and all that you do. We're going to call our next panel, Kenneth Garner. Kevin Johnson. Kenneth Garner. If you can, the first person I call can sit on my right. Kevin Johnson. Mika Haskell Hull. Kevin Gethers. James Dunn. Angela Jones. Oh, I'm sorry. I called poor people already. He'll be on the next panel, Ms. Jones. Sorry about that. All right, Kenneth Garner, Outreach Worker, Alliance of Concerned Men. Good morning, and please make sure to put your microphone. Perfect.
Good morning. Good morning to all. Chairperson Pinto, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share my personal testimony on my views of public safety and the judiciary. My name is Kenneth Darrell Garner, and I am a senior outreach worker for the Ward 7 Benning site. I am currently operating under the Alliance of Concerned Men here in our city. While being employed at ACM, I assist the OAG with its nonviolent approach to gun violence in our city. This initiative is entitled Cure the Streets. I have been a part of this working structure way of living for the last 5 years. Since this program has been active in my community, we have only had 4 gun-related fatalities inside of our target areas. While the numbers fluctuate throughout the city, shooting-related crimes have been interrupted, de-escalated, and forgotten about in many cases in our areas. These particular mentions aren't often spoken of. This work that we are performing and executing is brave, courageous, thoughtful, loving, and leading our youth towards a better and safer way of life, shedding light on a beautiful, loving way to live. I carry a caseload of 12 young men currently. I have helped lead 10 of them out of high school. One is heading to a junior college to play football this spring. 6 have been employed, with 5 of them still working. 2 of the young men now have their apartments inside of our community. One has since been enrolled by himself and my presence at DC Central Kitchen to study culinary arts, food handlers hours. We need more of this going on in our entire city. Not to mention, I helped 4 young men close out their supervision either early or on time successfully. It's these type of stories that have developed from the rebounds of poverty, the displacement of parents and the inner city households, the rules and guidelines that household residents have to follow to maintain control of their units and be in compliance. In some states, felons cannot remain on property as living residents. These are dads, sons, brothers, sisters, mothers, daughters, etc. Sounds harsh, though these are decisions that some are faced with. Uh, Along with not having enough to get by, it becomes challenging for many. Cure the Streets and OAG initiative have brought the big boy hope and faith back to our community.
Thank you so much, Mr. Garner. Kevin Johnson, Violence Interrupter, Alliance of Concerned Men.
Thank you. Good morning, Person Pinto and the members of the committee. It's nice to meet you all. My name is Kevin Johnson, and I represent Curtis Streets in ACM, Award 7. I'm here today to provide a testimony on the Curtis Streets Violence Interruption Program. Since I started volunteering for this program for Curtis Streets, I volunteered first before I even got into the whole situation. But when I first started volunteering, it opened the door for me, far as information, information gathering, everything about what program that I could help this person with, because I came from a background of coaching. I coached for at least 9 years, before I did any of the programs, right? So basically, it actually helped me when I started working under Curtis Streets. It actually helped me to start my own entity for me to help the youth for job readiness, hands-on training, helping them fix their credit, financial classes, basically, I was just doing it all under this one, nonprofit entity that I orchestrate or whatever. And I also provided jobs, but I learned like I said, the information came from Curtis Streets. I wouldn't have never known anything about starting my own entity, nonprofit, or anything if I didn't, start where I started at, and now I've been here for 2.5 years now. So I feel like with the 2 years that I have been here, I've helped a lot, families, individuals, because I'm a violence interrupter. I'm a VI. I'm out there every single day, day to day, walking around, making sure everybody stay on the right path, So like I said, before I did this, I was just a football coach, with a lot of with a lot of kids around, and feel like this was the right step for me, cause I'm already a community advocate, you know, I'm already inside the community, so, I felt like it was a right step for me to help others, you know what I'm saying, even more than I was at first, cause at first I was just throwing little cookouts for the youth, you know, just little basic little block little gatherings, you know what I'm saying, just for the youth, you know, because it really wasn't as much. I'm sorry, but it really wasn't as much to do for them besides football or going to programs that they really not getting stipends for. So they looking for you know, the something that, because we could always, like KG said and Lorenzo said, we could always come and tell them something, right? But if we not showing them, then it's something, it's just gonna go in one and not the other, you know? So I appreciate y'all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson.
No problem.
Mika Haskell-Hole, public witness.
Morning, Chairperson Pinto. My name is Micah Haskell Hale. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I'm here to ask for two things. First, please drastically increase funding for violence interruption and prevention. And second, do not consolidate violence interruption under the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. Cure the Streets, or CTS, under the purview of OAG, seems to have had more success in preventing serious and deadly community violence in 2023 than the ONE program, and both appeared to have done much better than MPD in preventing violence last year. As I probably don't need to tell you, citywide, where the only violence prevention and intervention tool is police enforcement, homicides went up 34%. In areas served by CTS, homicides actually decreased by 2%. This is stark, and I don't care what naysayers claim about violence interruption pushing crime into other areas in the same way as law enforcement tools like high visibility police cameras or drug-free zones. Can't see a violence interruption area, and nobody's on patrol harassing residents to enforce the boundaries of a VI program site. I oppose merging the city's two violence interruption programs under one for two reasons: evidence of effectiveness, and mayoral control. To the former point, last year, violence was not reduced as much in ONE priority neighborhoods as much as it was in CTS sites. While we don't know that this was caused by the differences in the programs, the difference in outcomes was big enough to justify continuing to maintain two programs and study them separately. On mayoral control, I want to see a program as important as CTS run out of an agency that has a reputation as the most effective in DC government, that is OAG. I've fought tooth and nail for countless hours with multiple city agencies over the last 16 months to secure resources for our children's Ward 5 public elementary school. I've seen how unresponsive, obfuscating, and unwilling to collaborate our great city's executive branch agencies can be. Further, ONE has been without a permanent director for an entire year. We need our VI programs to live in an agency that's a higher priority for the mayor than this. The bottom line here is merging CTS with ONE's VI program is a solution in search of a problem. And this body has more important business before it than fixing something that's working. Finally, I want to ask this body to devote drastically increased funding to other VI programs and violence prevention programs at OAG and ONE as well. There's a massive disparity between funding in these programs and MPD, which has decidedly not been defunded. Loudly shouted claims to the opposite notwithstanding. And I guess I do have one more ask. Please hold off on making permanent changes to DC laws to address crime. As we've seen in the data, and the experts and the residents have been saying this was likely to happen, it appears that the surge in community violence is trending downward naturally. Yes, pencils have erasers, and council can revisit changes that Secure DC would make, but you can also just hold off on second vote to see if March goes as well as February out in the streets. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'd be happy to work with you on any of these issues and to take any questions.
Very much. James Dunn, public witness.
Good morning. Thank you, Council Member Pinto. I'm here to share my personal experience on the work I've been so blessed to be a part of with the OAG's Cure the Street program. First, let me say, regardless of what some may think, this work is very much needed in our community. If asked what my role is, my title is an outreach worker, but my goal is to heal the individuals I engage with. You may say heal. Yes, heal, because what we're seeing is hurt people hurting people. I focus on bringing about awareness revolving around mental health, conflict resolution, emotional intelligence, restorative justice programs, etc. I will say, though, in trying to accomplish this, we are met with barriers. Some of these participants have very serious needs. Sometimes there is a lot of red tape and lack of resources in our community, as well as incompetence within these different government agencies that prevent us from being able to have a successful transition with our high-risk participants. A lot of their situations are dire. We need resources and incentive-based programs for these individuals. We must get creative in creating new programs to tackle these issues. Prison is not always the answer because it just continues the cycle. Organizations need to partner with us and truly understand the impact we can have on the community. I personally um, I have a couple of my participants here, as well as my participants' parent, one of my participants' parents, who will be testifying today too. Um, like I said, we have to get creative when we're working with these young individuals, and understand that when I say hurt people, that's a true statement, because a lot of these children have been traumatized before they haven't even stepped out their own door, right? So we have to understand, or we have to get creative in how we can get inside the home, work with the family, but not just the kids as well, to help them understand the impact that everything that's going on in their life is having on them, and why they're making these decisions that they're making. Um, and like I said, I just think, the OAG has done a magnificent job. I'm very blessed to have worked with them and be a part of this program, do this work. I come from this community. Like a lot of these individuals have testified today, I was once part of the problem, but now I'm trying to be a part of the solution, right? I have some success stories just like everybody else, but there are also I have some unsuccessful stories as well with some of my participants, right? And some of the root causes, I think, were the lack of resources at the time when they came in, and the red tape I had to try to get through for whatever need they may have had at that time.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much for doing this important work and for your testimony today. I wanted to ask you, Mr. Garner and Mr. Johnson, but anybody who wants to participate, about this merger idea, and what you think from your perspective with Cure the Streets in the idea of all violence interruption specialists being housed under one agency to improve training, to improve pay, and to improve coordination, but what you thought about that kind of from a practical perspective on how that would be implemented. Are you working with VIs out of ones now? Do you think that this is a good idea, or this is a bad idea? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, never really spoke on this subject before. I do, however, know multiple individuals that do this same exact work with the one's office. I don't know too much about their program, but I wholeheartedly believe in the program that I'm with. I seen the change happen. Like Mr. Dunn said, there's some downfalls and some pitfalls that you will encounter. But the way that you respond to it, it actually draws in more youth to show that you're committed. It shows that empty space that they're possessing in their hearts that can't be filled due to the absence of others. So I believe in the training. I believe in all the certifications that we possess, the things that they try to cover for not just the participants, but those that's in the communities that we reside in. and we work it on a day-to-day basis. It's big. It's very big. I just recently had a child, she's 13, do my warrior hero project on me and my team. She had an A+. She messed up a couple things on her presentation, but she got a B+. So to me, that's like a special bow and a thanks from the community for someone to even want to do their project and risk doing a project on someone that nobody in the school really knows. It says a lot about our work. It says the belief that they now have installed in their heads that I can go and do something in my life. I can show that I'm intelligent and smart and won't feel bullied or battered because of it. And it's owed thanks to the OAG program. This initiative is a wonderful, excellent program, and I feel it should be vetted in all communities in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, so I agree. I agree with actually what KG said. We actually have great relationships with, the ones, well, I have like ACM employees, the ones employees, like different different organizations. We was always told to um collaborate, you know what I'm saying? Reach out, make sure we take down numbers just in case we might got an issue over there. And so it was always that from the get-go. We was always told to make, be open to people, meet new people, within our work. So yeah, I definitely agree with the collaboration.
Thank you all very much for being here today. Appreciate it. I'm gonna call our next panel of in-person public witnesses, Angela Jones, Adam Yalowitz, Patricia Brown, Curtis Young, got it. Okay, thank you, Mr. Dunn. Eric Weaver, okay. Patricia Brown is not here. Is there anybody else in the room who signed up to testify as an in-person public witness? Hi, what is your name? Tabaz? Savon Isaac. Okay, great. Oh, is Colette Gregg here? No. Okay. Savon, why don't you come up and join this panel? Great, and we will get started with Angela Jones, public witness.
I'm here today to share my perspective of the importance of prevention and intervention programs, as well as treatment and rehabilitation. I have personally witnessed how broken the systems for incarceration, rehabilitation, SUD treatment, and mental health services prompted me to advocate for the street as an intervention tool. And I'd like to share some personal experience with that because as James had spoken earlier, I am a parent of one of his kids. And my son had lost contact with his PO, and he was outside. I was talking to him, James was talking to him, and eventually we got him. That was amazing. I had been talking to him, James also talked to him, and he, again, had lost contact, and so now that he was back in compliance with the PO, the next step was to get my son's substance abuse treatment. primarily because when he was at the halfway house in Baltimore, it's an open drug market. He was addicted to K2. He was doing all kind of drugs. I would call him on the phone and he'd be like, "Hey, Mom." So eventually got out of the halfway house and he came. And the drug use press. So James and I talked to Jordan. We talked to him and talked. I'm gonna go to treatment. I'm gonna go to treatment. So he went to the ARC and he sat at the ARC for 3 hours. 3 hours he sat at the ARC. And they told him they didn't have a bed space. So at that point, he left. So I feel like there needs to be change. There needs to be more supportive services. You know, this is very therapeutic for me because I have 2 sons and a grandson who are a part of the criminal justice system right now. And I think some of this could have been prevented with some preventive programming. You know, I'm a single parent. I didn't have the resources to send my kids out to sporting events and to keep them engaged. So in conclusion, I believe the encouragement and the support that my son received from his mentor, James, from Cure the Street, excuse me, made all the difference. It made all the difference. It made all the difference. He would have never turned himself in. He would have never turned himself into the PR. He would have never gone to the ARC to seek treatment without that support. So, right now, my son is over at DC jail. And that's why I'm terrible. Because now my son is over there because I just feel like had he had the opportunity to go to treatment when he sat in the ARC for 3 hours, he may not be in jail right now, facing the crime that he's facing. And for all the times that he has been incarcerated, not receiving the mental health services, not the IEP that he had, was never taken into consideration. And so that's what prompted me to be Congresswoman of the minute.
Well,
You
thank
know,
you so
we need
much.
change. We need change. These programs need funding. These people need case management services. They need mental health services. These children are running around and they need help. And they have parents like me. I go to work every day. And I talk to my kids all the time and I try to encourage them to do different things. I mean, okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your bravery and courage and sharing your story. And I really appreciate it so much. And we'll keep fighting alongside you. Adam Yalowitz, Research Director, Unite Here, Local 25.
Good morning. My name is Adam Yalowitz. I'm the Research Director for Local 25. We represent 7,000 hotel and restaurant workers in the DC area. I've been with our union for 14 years. In that time, I've worked with regulatory enforcement agencies at the state, local, and federal level in 10 cities across 7 states. And so we really just wanted to come here and express our deep appreciation. The DC Office of Attorney General's Workers' Rights and Anti-Fraud Section in the Public Advocacy Division is by far the most responsive and efficient agency I've ever worked with. Our union's interactions with the OAG's Workers' Rights Office have been primarily related to issues of alleged violations of DC's wage and hour laws, specifically allegations of wage theft, tip theft, and violations of DC's paid sick and safe leave law. While our union has strong collective bargaining agreements and enforcement programs for union hotels and restaurants, we've encountered these issues when talking to non-union workers in our industries. At one non-union restaurant, we met with multiple qualified workers who had been denied paid leave for time off due to illness. Their workers had accrued sick time in accordance with DC law and company policy, but multiple employees reported having been unable to use it. We also contacted the OAG's Workers' Rights Office last spring when workers at the restaurant Moon Rabbit shared serious concerns about the hotel restaurant's lack of transparency regarding the distribution of the tip pool and recurring issues of missing or incorrect wages or tips that could potentially constitute wage theft. Workers reported specific instances of missing tips and other inaccurate payments. while occasional corrections had been made by management following worker complaints, because the employer didn't provide the legally required tools for pay and tip transparency, there was no way for workers to know if they were being paid what they were owed, even when there were corrections. Every time we've contacted them, the office has provided helpful guidance on the law and its enforcement. Having a responsive OAG's office has been key for these hotel and restaurant workers, understanding their rights and having confidence in a process for their rights to be respected by their employers. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Yalowitz. Eric Weaver, President of the National Association for the Advancement of Returning Citizens.
Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity, Chairperson Pinto. I'm gonna read some first and then I want to speak from the heart. As founder and chairman of the National Association for the Advancement of Returned Citizens, I helped spearhead the implementation of Cure the Streets program in DC during a time of heightened neighborhood conflicts. This program aimed to mediate disputes and prevent gun violence in areas with high rates of such incidents. Through Cure the Streets, we not only addressed community tension, but we also provided employment opportunities for returned citizens, a group often overlooked for jobs. Despite the challenges, the fears faced by all involved, including violence interrupters, the program has made significant impacts in resolving conflicts under the surface. Moving forward, there may be a need to consider an update version to adapt to the evolving trends in violence. One of the key obstacles faced is the availability of resources, which needs to be diversified to cater to different needs, such as jobs, opportunities, relocation, and housing. So that was something that I just wrote, but just speaking from the heart, when this program first started, it was a time when there was a whole lot of neighborhood beefs going on in DC, and there was a whole lot of retaliation behind those beefs, neighborhoods going to different neighborhoods. OAG took a chance at that time called Racine with this program when nobody in the city wanted this program. It was a big protest, a big town hall, when everybody said they didn't want this program here. I crossed the picket line and decided that this was an opportunity, one, to put money in the streets to stop the violence, but also to hire returned citizens. I've been doing this work a long time. I was with Peaceaholics back when we had some success. I was also around when these programs start getting funded. And I saw a whole lot of people that we were working with either get killed or go to jail because there was no money left in the streets to do this work. So that was my reason for crossing that picket line. And I say I'm glad I did because it's exceeded my expectations or what I thought this program could do as far as taking these beef. We know if you look, we got a lot going on in the city right now. There's a lot of violence going on, but it ain't the same violence that it was when we started this. It's not a whole lot of retaliation. It's not a whole lot of neighborhoods beef. And that's what this program was intended to do at the time. And I believe we did a great job of doing that. And again, hiring returned citizens, I think this violence prevention work, these violence interrupters, I think these programs are doing better than the city, than the government, than these businesses, as far as giving people who have challenges an opportunity to work and be able to give back to their community. And to address the elephant in the room that, we keep talking about this merger, I think with this program I could speak on, it wouldn't be possible for us to have as much success if we didn't have the great relationship we have with the staff at OAG. Everybody on the staff has been hands-on, accessible, reachable, and the leadership has been good. So I think any type of merger has to take that under consideration, what the leadership needs to look like. I think more importantly, what has been a problem with the two is the lack of sharing of the resources and availability of access to some of the resources that may be at one spot and the other. So I think that's more important than making sure it's a universal access to whatever help we identify people needing. One of the things when I spoke, I know we hear a lot of people say resources, but you know, that's so broad when we say resources. What are resources? Sometimes it can be money, sometimes it can be jobs, sometimes it can be housing, food. One of the things that I've been looking at and been working with the Annie Casey Foundation with is relocate. Like, because if I shot somebody and okay, now I got resources. Does that make me safe? Does that make this person not want to retaliate against me? Because now, okay, Eric has resources, so let me not get back at him. So sometimes we got to look at other things. We got to think outside the box. But again, what I want to say about Cure the Streets, and I know a few of them I spoke about changing the norm. It's changed the norm not only of the participants, but it's changed the norm of the workers as well. These guys come from off the street. They were once, as they said, part of the problem. It's been several of these violence interrupters that we may don't talk about that's been shot. I know a couple of them that have lost their leg. I know we got people that have been killed. We have people that have lost their kids or their kids have been shot. My son was killed 4 years ago. And there's been times where people have come to us, man, forget this work. We need to get back. And every last one of us that I know of has said, no, we serious about this work we do. So that says that this work works. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Weaver, and I'm so sorry with the loss of your son.
Appreciate it.
We are now going to hear from Tavon Isaac, public witness. Welcome.
Thank you. I just wanted to speak about the work that James and Cure the Streets have been doing for me, and I wanted to explain that during the summer I had made some bad choices. I had got into a stolen car, and I was chased, and I had got arrested that night. And I think the day after that, my mom, she was telling me that she was gonna take me up to NARC, and she was gonna introduce me to everybody over there and who works there. And I met I met a lot of people there, and then I met James. And James, he became my mentor. He was showing me throughout the summer. He was just teaching me things, showing me right from wrong, showing me things about football. I had started playing football for my school's team, and they just they just been very helpful during my whole process of high school and going through the things I've been like doing. I've definitely been stepping things up. Um, NARC, they helped me get my school uniform in the beginning of the year. They throughout the school year, I had issues that was going on where I was suspended or that I was on the verge of being suspended, and then my mom, she would talk to James. James would call me. We would have a whole conversation about what I was doing, how I could fix that, and what was right from wrong from how I was acting in school or just like in general how I was acting. And it's really been a good experience for me. And I know that it would be a good experience for anybody else that would take the time and actually learn about how Cure the Streets can really help you and can help your community, environment, or just like anybody that you know that would need the help into getting into a better life. And that's it. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Tavon, for being here and for sharing your testimony. It's very helpful. How old are you?
I'm 15. I just turned 15, January 27th.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
And what sort of activities or things do you do with Mr. Dunn?
So we were playing football. We still get together sometimes. We go out or we would just we would just have conversations and just talk. And I know about 2 weeks ago we just had it was like a meeting where we had food and I was talking with his other participants and we were just connecting about anything that was going on and talking about all the stuff that's been going around and what's been happening.
Thank you. I'm just thinking about this merger idea still, and I want to ask you, Mr. Weaver, do you think that there is a way to repurpose that model of having real support from management and from the agency, but housed under one agency so that everybody can get similar training, similar benefits, and have the benefit of one shared infrastructure?
I really when I spoke earlier, I think the resources and availability of the information and the training is one thing, but I just don't know how it would look. It's two different models. So when you say does one model change or does the other model follow? I know with our model, I think we most effective because we more visible. You know, I don't know. I can't speak on the one's model. I don't know, but I know our model calls for us to be visible. You know, our people are out in the community all day, the 8-hour shift. I remember, when we first started, once we started being out there, everybody started saying, all the neighborhoods started saying, hey, I want the yellow shirts in my neighborhood. So I just don't know, from a model standpoint, what that would look like. But I'm glad that we had this opportunity to be here today because you asking people who are on the ground, who are actually doing the work, this instead of just relying on your colleagues or the community to make a decision on this. So I'm glad. I just don't know what that would look like as far as the model. And I think more importantly, the leadership, just putting it under one roof doesn't solve the problem or doesn't fix the problem if the wrong leadership, I think not only our model, but I think OAG's model of being easily accessible, coming out to our events, being open to feedback. They agree everything they say and do isn't right. So they open to when I say, hey, Gabby, that doesn't make sense. This is what's working now. And they open to that. So I think that communication has to be part of whatever leadership we have.
Okay, thank you very much. Very helpful. Thank you all for being here today and for sharing your stories and the work of OAG. Really appreciate it. We are now going to call our first panel of virtual public witnesses. As a reminder, please accept the panel invitation to join as a panelist coming from our team. And if you could remember also to put your name on the bottom of the Zoom, on your Zoom screen, that would be helpful. Senator Michael Brown, Bridget Stumpf, Mary Chambers, Latrice Taylor, Julia Ward, Aaron Sayedian, Meredith P., Tara Breneen, Tyrone Walker, Anthony Griggs. We will start with our DC Senator, Michael D. Brown. Please go ahead, Senator.
Thanks so much, Chairman Pinto. Thanks for allowing me to be here today to testify on behalf of my wife. She wanted to be there in person, but unfortunately she had several classes to teach and couldn't find a substitute. But we felt that this was so important, our testimony, that we wanted to deliver it personally. So I'm going to read her testimony, then I might add a comment or two, and I'll be open for questions. My name is Patricia Brown, and I've been a DC resident for 45 years. Because I cannot appear in person, I've asked my husband to testify on my behalf in support of the DC Office of the Attorney General's Consumer Protection Program and for their continued funding. I've worked for DC Public Schools for 12 years, both as a public school librarian and as manager of school library programs for all DC public schools. Nearing retirement age, I decided to consolidate my retirement accounts. It took 2 years and the support of OAG Consumer Protection Program to get my DCPS retirement correctly transferred. I submitted documentation to DCHR in June of 2022 to roll over my 401A and 457B account. By September, no one had responded, and I requested an update. The distribution from my 457, the smaller amount, was released. However, on September 8th, 2022, DCHR told me there were complications with my 401A. Their vague explanation claimed that I was placed in the wrong retirement plans at the wrong times. The recalculation for removing what they said were erroneous contributions to my 401A resulted in an unexplainable $16,000 deficit in my account. I requested a detailed accounting explaining how the numbers were calculated. In October 2022, DCHR stated they could not fulfill my request because the Office of Pay and Retirement Services had not completed their research on the issue. My question then became, how can DCHR calculate what I was or wasn't owed if they didn't have any specific information? I kept checking my accounts and discovered that they had closed my retirement accounts. This was a signal that nothing else was going to be done. As a result, I asked my husband to look into the matter. He had several communications with the director of DCHR and the supervisory HR specialist assigned to my account, to no avail. After 18 months and no answer, I contacted Consumer Protection at OAG, asking them to get a detailed accounting on how DCHR came to close my retirement accounts. I never asked for a refund, only an explanation. Meanwhile, I talked to DCPS friends and I discovered a teacher and a librarian who also had trouble getting their retirements. It took well over a year to settle both of their accounts. I also noted in an article in the Washington Post on June 1st about firefighters planning to sue for the pension that they have been promised but not given. Clearly, DC has issues with the retirement program. In my opinion, my issue would have never been resolved if it weren't for the intervention of the AOG's Office of Consumer Protection. Only through the participation of OAG's Consumer Protection Program was I able to retrieve the funds I was owed, plus interest, which amounted to $18,000, a lot of money for a school teacher. No one should have to go through these lengths or be stonewalled for a year and a half to get the money they earned and saved for their retirement. Thank you, OAG. I would only add to that, Chairman Pinto, that I tried to resolve this problem. And I can tell you, I'm pretty good at resolving problems inside the DC government after 18 years on this job. And as an ANC commissioner and other things, I've dealt with a lot of constituent complaints, and I'm usually pretty effective, but got nowhere. If it wasn't for a wonderful woman named Beth Barth and the OAG's Office of Consumer Protection, I agree with my wife. We've never gotten this resolved. And, you know, after 12 years of loyal service, the District of Columbia should say, thank you, not see what you can do to get your retirement. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Senator Brown, for your testimony, and thank you.
No, thank you. Thanks for allowing me to do this.
Absolutely. Bridget Stumpf, Executive Director, Network for Victim Recovery of DC.
Hello, thank you, Chairwoman Pinto and other committee members and staff. My name is Bridget Stumpf, and I'm the Executive Director at Network for Victim Recovery of DC. We work to create equitable healing and dignified experiences for survivors of crime by providing free, trauma-informed advocacy, therapeutic, and legal services. Additionally, our strategic litigation and education efforts aim to really transform the existing responses to harm that are often inadequate to meet the diverse needs that crime survivors have post-victimization. In the last year, our team served 1,181 survivors of crime. And we've enjoyed a partnership with the Office of Attorney General for the District of Columbia for nearly a decade. a collaboration that was seeded from a shared commitment to supporting older survivors of violence who often face significant barriers to healing and justice, has really blossomed into a meaningful collaboration working to create a restorative ecosystem in the district. And I want to recognize Elizabeth Weiser, who has really ensured strong continuity in our partnership. Attorney General Schwab and the leadership within OAG really continues their commitment to strengthening DC's community through nuanced approaches, working to address the root causes of crime, while contemporaneously working to really minimize the consequences of unaddressed traumas. And last year, we were lucky to receive a victim support grant from OAG that funded our restorative justice work. And that grant has really deepened the capacity of restorative justice facilitators in the community, while also decreasing barriers for victims who want to engage in restorative justice. As this project has evolved, MVRDC also developed a referral mechanism with other community partners so that we can create opportunities for survivor proxies to support OEG's restorative justice program. And since MVRDC has worked to facilitate 11 survivor surrogates in restorative justice conferences, working to restore community healing and really create individual accountability. In total, we have supported more than 60 survivors who explored restorative justice practices in just the last year alone. Of those survivors participating in RJ, 60% experienced sexual assault, 10% were secondary survivors of homicide, and 5% had experienced intimate partner violence. More than half of those survivors identified as Black and 60% female. It is really clear that OAG's leadership around building restorative justice is a tool for healing and restoration, and it's something that many crime victims actually want to have an option to engage in. Finally, last summer, the MVRDC Restorative Justice team and our partners held a successful restorative justice healing circle for anyone impacted by harm from crime. This included family members, community members, and the virtual circle was held in August with over 40 attendees. Growing restorative justice options is really just one way to innovate around gaps that we see every day for victims. And currently, we're really looking to explore how can we enhance our partnership with OAG to meet many of the unmet financial needs of those who experience carjacking in DC and face often insurmountable obstacles in accessing full financial recovery. In addition to these efforts, OAG has demonstrated a commitment to strengthening the skills and tools staff have to ensure trauma-informed experiences for those they interact with. Through our trauma education project, we have provided trauma-informed training to their domestic violence and special victims section, the restorative justice team, and the civil rights and elder justice section. We're really grateful for OAG's partnership and civil justice work to protect survivors of intimate partner and dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking through Chief Penny Spector's strong leadership. In addition to many survivors of gender-based violence who access our legal services, MVRDC also supports dozens of youth survivors through our youth services program that focuses on legal support and advocacy to youth who are survivors of dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking. This work is in direct alignment with Attorney General Schwab's current priorities to invest in DC's youth to build happy and healthy individuals and communities. And we're excited to partner to really enrich the ways that we are connecting with youth both inside and outside of schools, encourage healthy relationships and behaviors to reduce and prevent violence before services are even needed. Attorney General Schwab continues to lead novel efforts to ensure access to justice and recovery for DC residents, often those that we are frequently serving. And we are deeply grateful for his leadership and the commitment of his dedicated team and all they do for the DC community. Thank you for this opportunity to testify, and thank you for your leadership, Chairwoman Pinto.
Thank you so much, Ms. Stumpf. Mary Chambers. Julia Ward, Senior Staff Attorney at Legal Aid DC.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Pinto and members of the committee. My name is Julia Ward, and I am a Senior Staff Attorney at Legal Aid DC. We frequently represent low-income parents in litigation with and against the Child Support Services Division of the Office of the Attorney General and collaborate with the agency on policy proposals and other projects. I testify today on behalf of Legal Aid DC to highlight areas of CSSD's current basic operations that require additional attention from the Attorney General and his team to course correct and improve. Our written testimony goes into much more detail, but specifically, I want to use this time to share with the council problems with 1, CSSD's accessibility and messaging, 2, CSSD's inconsistent and inefficient use of their substantial investigative resources, and 3, CSSD's careless litigation practices that delay resolutions for parents and contribute to the court's congested calendar. Each of these seemingly small operational issues combine to impact how CSSD operates and equally critically, how this core agency is perceived by DC families. I can tell you that the perception is not good. We flag these recurrent issues today with the goal of encouraging OAG to do better for the district families relying on them for assistance, families that, I will note, are largely low-income residents of color. A recurring source of frustration for our clients interacting with CSSD is the near universal challenge of getting in touch with the agency. Parents tell legal aid that they can't get connected to the right person when they call the main phone number and instead get the runaround. They feel as though they simply cannot trust an agency that they cannot reach. At its core, CSSD is a customer service-based agency that serves and supports district residents. To properly serve district residents and ensure optimum customer service, CSSD must ensure it is accessible and that it communicates clearly and regularly with the parents it assists, as well as those it litigates against. CSSD has tremendous resources to support its litigation and enforcement efforts, but the agency is inconsistent and slow to use them. When parties are not forthcoming with their income, CSSD has alternative options to gather that information, including the new hires database, subpoenas to employers or banks, property records, business registrations, and credit reports. We have observed widely variable levels of investigation and service provided to litigants in ongoing cases. In some cases, CSSD utilizes all of its resources, but this is more of the exception than the rule. We would like to see CSSD more uniformly leverage its power as a government agency to investigate and gather relevant information, ideally early in the case, to move cases forward and establish orders without the need for continued multiple hearings. OAG stated in the pre-hearing written responses that they, quote, do not formally consent to motions to modify child support orders. In FY23, CSSD filed no response to more than half of the motions to modify filed by the obligor parent in the case, completely ignoring the court's practice rules requiring a response. CSSD's failure to review motions and wean out those to which they'll consent in advance of hearings contributes to the pervasive calendar congestion. It is also just careless litigation practice, disrespectful to both the court and the parents involved. We know complaints about CSSD not answering the phone, not searching their databases, and not filing responses may seem small in comparison to our testimony in the past or other testimony you'll hear today. But we encourage you and the Attorney General to understand how these operational deficiencies contribute to how the agency as a whole and the AG personally is viewed by the many, many district parents who interact with his representatives at CSSD. We want to use our remaining time today to flag an error in OAG's written pre-hearing responses concerning their services for domestic violence survivors. Pre-pandemic, CSSD offered a process through which they would file a petition for child support and serve a parent who was the respondent in a civil protection order case within the 2-week timeframe of that case. OAG attorneys would then litigate these expedited support matters parallel to the related CPO case. CSSD's current handling of requests for assistance for domestic violence survivors is grossly inadequate in that contrary to what they stated in their written responses, they no longer offer this service. We have been told that CSSD does not have the staff to serve respondents in court and that they are unwilling to allow courtroom staff to execute service instead. CSSD's elimination of this service ignores the practical reality of DV survivors seeking a civil protection order who are not likely to obtain a CPO by consent if the order includes child support, thereby forcing them to go to trial against their abusive co-parent if they want child support to be included. We are hopeful that the Attorney General, now aware of this reality, will resume this crucial service for DV survivors. Thank you.
We have a number of people on this panel who are not here, so we're going to hear next from Tara Bernine. and then Tyrone Walker, but I also want to call up Daryl Turner, Dante Boyd, Elizabeth Falcon, Jamar Long, and Trupti Patel, ANC Commissioner. So we will turn to Tara Bernine from the DC Volunteer Lawyers Project.
Good afternoon. Thank you to the committee for the opportunity to provide testimony today. My name is Tara Bernine, and I'm an attorney at the DC Volunteer Lawyers Project. DCVLP is a nonprofit organization that was established in 2008. We provide comprehensive pro bono legal assistance to survivors of domestic violence, including survivors of dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, and gender-based violence. In 2023, DCVLP provided legal representation to 537 survivors of domestic violence and protection order cases and helped 342 survivors and their children in family law cases, including divorce and custody. For the past year and a half, as an Equal Justice Works Fellow sponsored by Kroll and Mooring Foundation, my practice at DCVLP has focused on helping survivors impacted by gun violence. Among other things, I represent clients in DC Superior Court in Extreme Risk Protection Order, or ERPO, cases, as well as in Civil Protection Order cases that have a gun violence component. Since September 2022, I've had many occasions to work with and learn from the dedicated attorneys in the domestic violence section at the DC Office of the Attorney General. I've worked with OAG in connection with my ERPO cases, as well as on criminal contempt cases where OAG prosecutes contempt of a CPO involving a DCVLP client. I'd like to highlight a few examples, starting with our ERPO cases. ERPOs are civil orders used to prohibit the purchase or possession of firearms or ammunition by those who pose a significant risk of causing bodily injury to self or others. Several categories of people can petition for an ERPO, including MPD officers, mental health care professionals, and people related to the respondent. Survivors of domestic violence can also file for an ERPO if they have a qualifying relationship with a respondent, like being married or having a child in common. When a survivor files for an ERPO, OAG can intervene in the case on behalf of the government. OAG attorneys have been invaluable partners in our ERPO cases in several ways. First, OAG has been instrumental in helping DCVLP attorneys to timely secure crucial evidence in these cases, including police records and body-worn camera footage. Normally, to obtain body-worn camera footage, nonprofit attorneys are required to jump through a series of time-consuming hoops that include petitioning for a court-issued protective order, issuing a subpoena to MPD for the footage, and then awaiting a response, which often requires multiple follow-up inquiries. This process can take weeks, with potentially deadly consequences for clients who are in need of immediate protection. OAG is able to timely access this evidence and upload it as their trial exhibit in cases in which they've intervened, allowing the case to resolve more quickly. Second, OAG has shown time and time again a willingness to step in to support DCVLP clients when the tools available to our attorneys fall short. In one of our cases, our client and the respondent did not have a requisite qualifying relationship under the ERPO statute because the parties never actually dated, and so the client was unable to file for an ERPO herself. OAG staff worked to find a law enforcement officer to file on our client's behalf. Without OAG's efforts, that vulnerable client would not have been able to obtain the protection of an ERPO at all. Third, OAG attorneys have also generously shared their technical guidance and advice to us to assist in working through complex legal issues that arise in ERPO cases. One example that comes to mind are warrants issued in these cases. OAG has helped us think through when and how an ERPO warrant can be issued and when the issuance of an ERPO as part of an ERPO meets the probable cause standard. Now turning to CPO contempt cases, our clients have had nearly uniformly positive experiences working with OAG attorneys. OAG attorneys proactively communicate with our clients in a trauma-informed manner to explain the contempt process and their decision whether or not to seek charges. Where charges are sought, OAG provides clients with regular updates as the case progresses. OAG also refers clients to us who may need additional legal services. In one instance, for example, OAG referred a case to our office so that we could assist the client in filing a motion to extend a CPO where they were working with the client on a related criminal contempt case. We eventually agreed to then fully represent that client in a custody case. This brings me to my last point. I want to use this opportunity to thank the dedicated OAG attorneys who have gone above and beyond in helping us secure justice on behalf of our survivor clients. I've had wonderful experiences working with OAG attorneys. AAG Sarah Connell and I most frequently work together, and I'm consistently amazed at her breadth of knowledge and expertise, her willingness to find creative solutions for cases, and her dedication to her work. There's no question that many of our clients and their families are safer today, in part due to OAG's ongoing commitment to serving some of the most vulnerable people in our city, and to partnering with organizations like DCVLP who share this mission. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you so much, Ms. Bernine. Tyrone Walker, Director of Reentry Services, Georgetown University Prisons and Justice Initiative.
Thank you, Chairperson Pinto and the other committee members for allowing me to testify. I'm the Deputy Director of the Georgetown University Prisons and Justice Initiative, and I'm here to testify in the place of Tyrone Walker, our Director of Reentry Services, who is unfortunately unable to attend the hearing. I'm appearing today on behalf of the Prisons and Justice Initiative in support of the OAG mediation program and continued and increased funding for the OAG PJI Employment Partnership. Our relationship with the OAG goes back to the very start of our reentry paralegal program. In 2018, the Mayor's Office on Returning Citizens Affairs and PJI formed a partnership by creating the Morka Georgetown Paralegal Program, a reentry education program specifically designed to serve formerly incarcerated district residents who have developed a passion for the legal field. The program aims to address the significant barriers to employment in the legal profession that returning citizens face and provides our fellows with both formal training and professional certification to supplement their practical experience, creating an entry point to start or advance their law careers. Participating paralegal fellows complete an intensive 24-week certificate program through the Georgetown University Law Center and earn an hourly stipend while completing their classes full-time. After completing their academic coursework, fellows explore opportunities for full-time paralegal and legal support positions and receive instruction, coaching, and mentorship in preparation for that employment. In creating and launching the Morka Georgetown Paralegal Program, we at PJI and our partners at Morka reached out to various law firms, nonprofit organizations, and government agencies, asking them to partner with us by providing fellows with full-time paid employment upon their completion of the program. The Office of the Attorney General under former AG Carl Racine was one of a small number of original employer partners to step up and hire one of our graduates from that very first cohort. When our second cohort started up again after a brief pause during the COVID-19 pandemic, the OAG hired 3 more individuals. From our third cohort, they hired another 5 graduates. The OAG has remained a consistent and excellent partner, providing supportive and meaningful employment to our graduates. Over the past 4 cohorts, a total of 47 returning citizens have completed the paralegal program. From our most recent cohort, which graduated in September 2023, 80% of the admitted fellows graduated and 91% of the graduates are currently employed. A total of 12 graduates have been hired full-time at the DC Office of the Attorney General, and 8 of them are still currently employed there. The DC OAG has created a comprehensive and supportive training and onboarding process for our graduates, and our graduates consistently succeed and excel in their positions within the OAG and afterward. Our graduates who have worked for the OAG report great satisfaction in their employment and a welcoming and supportive environment among their colleagues. While our graduates who went on to work for the OAG report very positive experiences, our partners at the OAG also report positive outcomes from their perspective and the perspective of the DC residents whom they serve. Emily Barth, Assistant Attorney General in the Office of Consumer Protection, recently shared the following statistics with us at PJI. With the help of the paralegal program graduates, the OAG mediation program mediated over 3,700 complaints, an increase from 2,800 in the previous year, and returned over $1.2 million to consumers and tenants, an increase from $586,000 in the previous year. Given all the demonstrated positive outcomes of this program for returning citizens in the district, for the Morka Georgetown Paralegal Program, for the DC Office of the Attorney General, and for district residents at large, I wish to express my ongoing enthusiastic support for the OAG mediation program and their partnership with our paralegal program. On behalf of the Prisons and Justice Initiative and Georgetown University, we hope to see continued and increasing support and funding for this partnership moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chamberlain. Darrell Turner, Public Witness. Mr. Turner, if you're here, we'll need you to turn yourself off mute. Okay, we will go on to Dante Boyd, public witness.
Good afternoon. Could you hear me?
Yes, good afternoon. We can hear you.
I am here today to testify on behalf of the Office of Attorney General Child Support Employment Program and tell you how I transitioned, how they helped me transition back into society. And as a man with kids, and I've been incarcerated for 25 and a half years for a crime I had no role in, had nothing to do with, and I have kids, and I came home to a program called Free Mind. And Free Mind introduced me to Mr. Tillman, Mr. Stevenson, and Mr. Davis. And they've been hands-on with me for over a year. They helped me transition. They helped my kids to try to get a job and pay little child support that they've been taking from me. Since I've been incarcerated, they've been taking every little penny I got in prison that I didn't have anything I get, they was taking it from me. And Mr. Stevens and Mr. Tillman and Mr. Davis been helping me ever since. The program is real good. It helped me adjust as a man and a man with kids. And it helped me and other people, other men and other women. And I just can't say it's so much good things they do. Without them, there'd be no me. And they help my kids that got kids. My son always in Georgia, they help him with his kids to try to show them things that I don't know. They talk to him and tell him, because I don't know everything. And they help me and they hands-on, like 7 days a week, they there for you. I don't care who you is, where you at, you can call them out, they sleep. They gonna get there, they gonna talk to you. And we have a meeting every Friday. And I be needing that meeting. And I can talk for everybody that's in the program with me. We all need that meeting on Fridays. And it's just like a breath of fresh air. You can be down and out. They gonna uplift you. They there for you. And that's a wonderful program. And more people been coming to the program. And this all new to me, like talking like this. And I got like this because of Mr. Stephen, Mr. Davidson, and Mr. Tillman. And I just can't say so. There's so much they do for me and for the program. And if I ever knew about this program before I went to prison, when I had my kids, when they was 3 and 4 years old, I wouldn't be going through all this stuff I'd be going through now. And I just want to thank them and thank this program, because this program means a lot to DC, period. Because if we had this back in the days when I was a teenager, it'd be way different. And, you know, they just there for you. And through right, wrong, whatever you're going through, you sleep, Mr. Till, Mr. Stephen, Mr. Davis. They there for you. And I call them my big three. And thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Boyd. Commissioner Trupti Patel from ANC 2A03.
Good afternoon, Councilwoman Pinto. Thank you for hosting this hearing so that our comments may be entered for the permanent record. My name is Trupti Patel, and I'm a third-term ANC Commissioner that represents Single-Member District 2A03, which is historic Foggy Bottom. In addition, I am the longest-serving elected official that is currently a tipped worker. It's safe to say that the DC Council knows me as that restaurant girl, the one who's always talking about tipped worker issues, such as sexual harassment and wage theft. Honestly, I'm more than happy to be known for other important issues, but since the DC Council doesn't want to pay attention to these issues, pay attention to issues impacting tipped workers and do the oversight that they should be, I had to be the one that will sound like a broken record. Wage theft and wage transparency are major issues that impact both workers and consumers. The DC Council is in the process of considering the Dram Shop Plus bill, which you are one of the co-sponsors of. The very legislation wants to do the following: sanction wage theft, strict rights of consumers that are protected by the CPPA, erode the ability of the OAG to protect workers and consumers. In addition, you have signed on to 2 harmful amendments. One amendment stripping workers of their much-deserved raise of $2, and then to go to a full minimum wage causing deliberate chaos to both workers and operators, allowing for operators to run hog wild with junk fees, leaving no true recourse for consumers or workers and facing legal repercussions in the form of lawsuits. Make no mistake, I've already spoken to the attorneys at OAG about what recourse do workers have, and they have said that these junk fees will make it near impossible for workers to prove if they're getting cheated or not as far as their pay is concerned. I'm beyond livid at the callousness shown to the tipped hospitality workers. We're pawns in political battles, and see what our bosses are, and see that our bosses are immature and petty in regards to the wealth creators that are the workers cutting into their profit margins. Operators have received millions of dollars in relief, both federally and locally, while workers got a paltry $75 million over 3 years. The only safety net workers had to rely on since COVID has been the OAG, as DOES has such a poor record of performance with a litany of excuses. It was the OAG that did the following: went after founding farmers and got over $2 million worth of stolen wages back, took on GratShare and got thousands of workers back funds for an app that was charging workers for information that they are entitled to by law, and allowed for wage transparency violations to thrive. Already telling operators that junk fees must be disclosed, allowed to be removed, and what it's stated for. The Consumer Protection Division, along with the Wage Theft Division, will get slammed with numerous complaints and cases they will have to try, and I'm fully confident they will win every single case brought before them. The OEG is the entity that not only tipped workers can trust, but all workers as well as consumers. It is the one entity that is truly independent, and it is the true advocate for people. Every experience I've ever had with OAG has been above board, yielding results that are beneficial for workers and consumers. I trusted AG Carl Racine's leadership, and I have the same level of trust and confidence in AG Brian Schwab. OAG is the entity we can all trust, and that their performance is stellar. In fact, it should be expanded so that they continue to advocate for DC residents. In service, Trupti Patel, ANC2A, single member District 2A03, Vice Chair, ANC2A. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Commissioner Patel. And thank you to everybody on this panel. Really appreciate you being here. And similar to some of our earlier panels, I think the topics that you touched upon really demonstrate the breadth of far-ranging work and impact that OAG has. So I appreciate all of you being here today. We are going to move on to our next panel of public witnesses. Michael Myers, Anessa Burwell, Najee Fields, Sandra Mills, Laura Richards, Danye Bradley, Tiffany Montgomery, Dean Hunter, Kevin Gethers, Ruth Wilcox, Marquette White, and Linda Long. We will start with Michael Myers, public witness.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Myers. My wife and 2 small kids and I live in Ward 7, Kingman Park area. I'm happy to testify here today before the committee and share my experience working with the AOG Office of Consumer Protection. For that, I must explain a little background as to what happened. Most people can relate to returning a rental car. You drive over those scary one-way spike strips, you park in the return lane, and meet somebody there who takes the car so it can quickly be flipped for the next person. It is an efficient process. Last February, we needed an extra car for the weekend, and when I went to return the car at the Hertz at Union Station, it was business as usual, scary spike strips and all, up until the person I handed the keys to at the return lane turned out to not be a Hertz employee, and they took off with the vehicle. At the time, we still had both kids in childcare, so our monthly budget was already in the red, and we couldn't handle extra expenses. After speaking with the police, I went home, combed through the terms I agreed to when I rented the vehicle, and I could tell I was in a gray area here, and I was beginning to worry about what would happen next. Was Hertz going to bill me for a replacement vehicle? Shortly thereafter, I found out the vehicle was recovered, and after a few months of back and forth with the location manager, they said nothing else was needed from me, and I breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed to be over. Unfortunately, a few months later, Hertz Corporate started calling, emailing, and sending me letters. They revoked my rental privileges. They billed me almost $1,800 for damages that occurred while the vehicle was not in my possession, also for loss of value and loss of use. With everybody I spoke with, I tried to explain how this situation was a little more complicated than what they typically called a theft from customer, but nobody had the power to reverse the process already underway. They would quote a line from the terms that I had agreed to. It is your responsibility regardless of who is at fault. I then went to my credit card, who I used to rent the vehicle, hoping that they could get through to Hertz, but they simply wrote a check for what my deductible is and told me to reach out to my primary car insurance. I then spoke with them, and while they were on my side, they said I would need to file a claim to get involved. But they said just for the remaining that was due, about $700, it would end up costing me more in the long run with increased premiums. At this point, I felt stuck. $700 was still a lot of money to us and still is, and Hertz was starting to threaten to send my balance to the collections agency. I was telling my story to as many people as I could, both as a cautionary tale and on the off chance they could offer advice. And one day I got lucky and somebody suggested I look up the Attorney General's office. I filled out the necessary form for the Office of Consumer Protection and they responded the next business day. I provided them with all the information and they were able to get done in a few weeks what I was unable to do in months. The paralegal I worked with was able to get the attention of the Hertz Assistant General Counsel and explain the situation, and they immediately ceased pursuing collections and suggested a review of the security protocols at Union Station. I'm eternally grateful for the professional staff, their empathy and understanding and standing up for me, and I cannot express how valuable this resource is and can't imagine where I would be if it wasn't recommended to me to reach out. I encourage the council to work with AOG to make sure all residents are aware of these services. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Myers. Anessa Burwell, public witness. Najee Fields, public witness.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
Okay. Good morning, Chairperson Pinto and members of the Committee on the Judiciary and Public Safety. My name is Najee Fields, and I am a representative of Cure the Streets Historic Anacostia Fairlawn Father Factor Incorporated. As program manager, I am here today to provide a testimony on the Cure the Streets Violence Interruption Program. The Cure the Streets Historic Anacostia Fairlawn site began its gun violence reduction efforts in June of 2022. While canvassing the community during the first week, our team encountered a disagreement between two women. Our training was quickly put to the test when one of them decided to walk to her vehicle to retrieve a firearm. Our staff, all having prior ties to the community, was able to de-escalate the altercation with no one getting hurt. Since our creation, we have been able to provide resources to over 50 plus high-risk individuals who were or are at risk of committing gun violence. We are able to provide them with job training, assistance in legal cases, obtaining vital documents, as well as mental health and trauma resources. The team strategy is we do not need more resources, we need to become the resources. We have also partnered with many community members and organizations to change the norms and maintain peace. Community buy-in and support is vital for the success of the program. We collaborate monthly with partnering organizations to bring resources otherwise unavailable to the Anacostia Fairlawn community to aid in the gun violence reduction epidemic. The team has also faced many challenges since its creation. The main challenge is finding a resource that meets the needs of a high-risk individual, but as they go through the process, the program is unreliable or so much red tape that the individual loses trust in not only the resource, but our program's reliability. We make it our mission to provide multiple options of resources for backup just in case one falls through. Another challenge we may face is we may obtain resources for high-risk individuals and they might not have consistent transportation and or housing to be successful in the program. Our team works closely with them to identify alternate transportation and resources no matter whose caseload they belong to. Our team works together to ensure we can change the norms of each individual. Our program relies heavily on collaboration of other organizations or key individuals to mediate conflict. When conflict arises, we need assistance, and we need assistance. Our team reaches out to the other affected Cure the Street sites, high schools, middle schools, and other government agencies that need to maintain a peaceful community community and ensure no one loses a life. I would like to thank the historic Fairlawn community, the countless organizations that have partnered with us to assist with reducing gun violence, and individuals working to reduce gun violence. As a member of the Cure the Streets team, I want to express my gratitude for the unwavering support we receive from the OAG. Their funding, training sessions, oversight, and data-driven approach has elevated our program practice. With their partnership, we're making a real impact in reducing gun violence in our community. That's all.
Thank you very much. Sandra Mills, Co-Chair, Housing Subcommittee, Committee of 100 on the Federal City.
Hi there, my name is Sandra Mills, and I will be testifying on behalf of the Committee of 100 regarding the performance of the Attorney General's office in the area of housing. The importance of the AG's role in securing safe and affordable and fair housing for DC residents really can't be overestimated. My testimony will be focused on the litigation conducted by OAG's Public Advocacy Division, and my colleague on the Committee of 100, Laura Richards, will separately address the performance of OAG's Equitable Land Use section. Through the Public Advocacy Division, OAG can and does bring lawsuits to halt and remedy unlawful and even abusive practices that harm DC residents. Since Brian Schwab became the new Attorney General a little over a year ago, the Public Advocacy Division has pursued cases against both private and public housing providers. In the area of the private housing providers, OAG has brought important new cases against landlords, resolved pending ones, and achieved really impressive results in the cases that I've described at the end of my written testimony. There's not enough time to talk about all of them, but just to briefly summarize a few, OAG obtained restitution and property repairs for tenants where landlords had failed to remedy, dangerous conditions. They also include 2 cases brought under the new DC Human Rights Act for unlawful discrimination against tenants, and even a major antitrust action alleging a price-fixing conspiracy involving 14 landlords that illegally raised the rents of thousands of DC tenants. We applaud this vigorous litigation, and we look forward to more of it in the coming years. In the public housing area, however, we do have some concerns. And just to step back a bit, during the past year, OAG has continued litigating the case brought in June of 2022 against the DCHA for failing to give disabled residents housing that is safe and accessible, and instead trapping them in a dysfunctional bureaucracy for years, giving them no place to go. Unfortunately, this was not the first time OAG had sued DCHA. In 2020, OAG alleged that DCHA failed to make critical security enhancements to 10 properties, despite many instances of things like homicides, assaults, and drug arrests. The DCHA quickly settled this case and agreed to numerous conditions, including improving security at 10 properties. So while we commend OAG's efforts to compel DCHA to provide safe, fair, and affordable public housing, the scathing report issued by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in December of 2022, after OAG had filed its cases, it detailed DCHA's gross mismanagement of its properties. And this report has made it clear that the cases OAG has filed do not really seem to have made much of a difference, at least not to date. We have found no public information indicating that OAG ever secured DCHA's compliance with the promises that it made in settling the 2020 lawsuit. And the 2022 case, now in litigation, at least so far, has not appeared to have compelled DCHA to remedy its practices. So we urge greater transparency by OAG regarding its efforts to secure DCHA's compliance with the law. The public needs to know whether OAG's cases are really achieving any real change in DCHA's practices. And if they are not, then we urge OAG to take further steps to hold DCHA accountable. If that requires seeking an appointment of a receiver, then perhaps OAG should consider that option. Too much is at stake for DC residents in need of affordable public housing that is safe and fair to allow DCHA's mismanagement to continue. Thank you for considering my testimony.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mills. Laura Richards, Committee Co-Chair, C100 Zoning Committee. Ms. Richards, you are still muted. Laura, can you hear me? There we go.
Okay, so now you can hear me. You can hear me. I'm on. Thanks.
Yes.
Yes, I'm Laura Richards, and I'm testifying on behalf of the committee regarding OAG's Equitable Land Use Division. We're very pleased that Attorney General Brian Schwab is continuing his predecessor's advocacy on land use and zoning issues. We've been especially impressed with OAG's work on Zoning Commission case 2225, and that's a pending set of amendments to procedural rules governing how zoning cases are conducted. The OAG exhaustively analyzed the detailed rules at issue in this case. In addition to preparing written testimony, the OAG prepared a PowerPoint presentation that made the amendments and their impact accessible in a way that a dry discussion of administrative law never could achieve. The OAG also proposed numerous amendments to rules, again centering on enhancing notice requirements and the opportunity for comment. Disappointingly, in subsequent versions of the rules, the OAG suggestions and those of the public generally were given very short shrift. Similarly, in 2021, OAG and the Office of Zoning ignored OAG's proposed amendments to inclusionary zoning rules. OAG proposed requiring IZ units in all downtown zones and opening inclusionary zoning units to lower income households. There were delays in bringing OAG's rules before the Zoning Commission, and when that finally occurred, the commission voted against OAG's proposals without a public hearing. The public and the public's elected representatives, in this case OAG, should not have to struggle to be heard on crucial zoning and planning issues. That said, we are disturbed by some positions taken by the OAG in several recent cases, which we think undercut the ends that OAG seeks to achieve: greater equity and increased affordable housing. In two of the cases, map amendments for the Tacoma Metro Station and 1617 U Street, OAG cavalierly endorsed maximum height and density increases allowed under the comprehensive plan. In doing so, the OAG failed to take into account the likelihood that such extreme upzoning will displace more African-American households and working class and middle class income households of any race that will be housed under the IZ units generated by these projects. In the U Street case, the OAG endorsed upzoning an entire government-owned site from U to V Street, 16th to 17th, an entire city block, to purportedly maximize the number of affordable units, notwithstanding the future displacement of neighboring African-American homeowners and other less affluent households, because they're going to suffer the increased property assessments and tax bills. The OAG also ignored the fact that additional sites along U Street could more easily be upzoned, and they're not being government-owned, would be subject to much lower IZ set-asides than the block in question. Also, while claiming to want as much affordable housing as possible, the OAG glossed over OP's decision to apply the lower IZ requirements of IZ Plus rather than the 30% requirement applicable to conversion of government-owned sites. And there's some other problems we've outlined in our written testimony, but I will move on. In the Tacoma Metro Station case, The OAG advanced a similar position, endorsing the maximum level of upzoning and again ignoring the proven propensity of high-density market rate housing to generate displacement. The OAG also overlooked the impact of high density on a racially diverse neighborhood that had actively fostered integration since the 1960s. We're asking for more nuance. We encourage OAG to continue participating in zoning cases and other land use matters. The attorneys in the unit are sophisticated and experienced. That makes it all the more disconcerting to see it apply a one-size-fits-all approach to zoning cases, and their approach essentially mirrors OP's developer-friendly approach, which has been shown to be defective. We ask the OAG to take a step back and look at the results of 25 years of high-density development. The district lost 60,000 African-American residents during that period. Inclusionary zoning doesn't work. It simply gives away bonus density for pocket change. We expect more from a land use unit that has shown such promise. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you very much, Ms. Richards. Danye Bradley, public witness.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I wanted to first say good afternoon, Chairperson Pinto, to you and your committee. I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Danye Bradley. I presently serve as the program manager for Oversight Incorporated. As the program manager for Oversight Incorporated, I wanted to take this time to give a testimony on the awesome work that I have seen done by the Care the Streets team in our community. I wanted to first thank you for the opportunity to give a testimony, but I also want to thank OAG for their never-ending support, thank them for the funding, thank them for the ongoing training and the oversight. But more importantly, I wanted to thank them for providing us with an evidence-based approach that has proven to stop the shooting in our community. As a program manager, I'm learning that it's not my job to manage people, but to properly manage relationships. So it's through continual engaging in our community that we are able to properly manage these relationships. It's through the engagement that we're able to pull in residents that are more likely to be at risk of gun violence. And when we pull them in, we had an opportunity to connect them to different resources that can improve their quality of life. As we work closely with them, we find out, unfortunately, that birds of a feather flock together. So it gives us an opportunity to pull in more people to be able to help change the norms that we see in our community. We work closely with them to help them navigate their most interpersonal relationships so that we can see them navigating and moving through programs and systems that have proven to be difficult to our returning citizens and some of our single parent households that's having trouble navigating certain systems. So we're able to engage not only the individuals, but we're also able to engage community partners so that we can help our residents, our community members walk through certain programs and systems that could be frustrating. And through building these relationships, we're able to help folks move in a manner where we no longer use people to get things. We are learning how to use things to help people. And we want to thank you. I'm not here to complain. I'm not here to ask for nothing. I just want to say thank you to not only OAG, I want to say thank you to y'all for allowing me to get this testimony. I want to say thank you to our community partners. I want to say thank you to our residents, because it's only through our residents that we're able to see this change. We haven't had a homicide in 323 days in our community. And I believe that if we keep up the work, it'll continue. We'll be able to look back at this time and say, look at what God done. So I thank y'all for your input. I thank you for your help. And 5 minutes is not enough time to cover everything. Thank y'all.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bradley. I know how you feel. Tiffany Montgomery, public witness.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Pinto and
And
committee.
Tiffany, I'm sorry
Thank
to
you so much.
Tiffany, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Miss Richards, can you please put yourself on mute?
Oh, I thought I was remuted. Okay, I am. 1 second, I will do that now.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, Tiffany, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Pinto and members of the public. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I'm testifying not only as a member of the public, but as a whistleblower who blew the whistle on serious government corruption and criminal activity in a DC government agency known as the DC Board of Ethics and Government Accountability. Since last year, after my testimony before Chairwoman Pinto and this committee, I met with GOP Chairman James Comer's office and his legal staff, as well as the Chief Investigative Counsel for the U.S. Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Government Accountability regarding not only the criminal conduct of the DC Board of Ethics and Government Accountability, but also the blatant dishonesty and submission of perjured testimony by the DC Office of the Attorney General under corrupt Carl Racine. I filed a temporary restraining order against my former supervisor at DC Board of Ethics and Government Accountability. Her name is Nikhil Allen. She was referred for criminal investigation by DC Department of Human Resources, as well as DC Police Internal Affairs Bureau. The DC Office of the Attorney General prevented all of my government witnesses from testifying in court on my behalf after Ms. Allen fraudulently obtained my social security number and date of birth and started making false accusations against me. And Assistant Chief of Police for Internal Affairs, Wilfredo Manlopez, was willing to testify. I have the emails from not just MPD Internal Affairs, but the FBI liaison. And so I subsequently contacted the FBI regarding the dishonesty of the DC Office of the Attorney General. The two Assistant Attorneys General were Margaret Yulee and Bert Lopez, but Mr. Carl Racine was involved in trying to intimidate me through various means. And after I contacted the FBI, I understand that Mr. Racine's current employer was subsequently charged by the Securities and Exchange Commission for $8 million for defrauding investors. So Mr. Racine has essentially escalated his frauds from committing fraud on the courts against whistleblowers to now defrauding investors. So I'm very disappointed with the DC Office of the Attorney General, but I'm very thankful for the Republicans and be willing to assist me on behalf of the public and as a whistleblower.
Okay, thank
you for
thank
this
you.
opportunity to testify.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Montgomery. Kevin Gethers, public witness.
All right. Good morning, Chairperson Pinto and esteemed council members. First, my name is Kevin Gethers. It is an honor to testify before the committee in support of the OAG, and specifically my experiences with the OAG mediation program. 1 second. Wait a minute, excuse me. All right, and especially, all right. I'm a 2022 graduate of the Mocha Georgetown Paralegal Program and a former paralegal specialist at the OAG mediation program from January 23rd to December the 23rd, 2023 to December 2023. I left the OAG after obtaining permanent employment with another legal provider in the district. I'm certain that I would have not obtained my current position but for my experiences at the OAG and the professional support and opportunities that I had there. First, as a native Washingtonian for 61 years, I want to highlight the importance and value of the OAG mediation program. Mediation gives DC residents the opportunity to have a voice and to be heard in order to try and resolve their consumer and tenant issues without the need of going to court, especially the most vulnerable members of our community. The work this program does for the citizens of the District of Columbia is immeasurable. Over and over again, I heard from the consumers and tenants that I had the privilege to help that their issues would never have been resolved, nor even responded to if the OAG had not helped them and reached out to the business or landlord on their behalf. I encourage I encourage council members to continue its funding of this program and consider additional funding so the OAG mediation program can continue to expand its reach and become a go-to resource for residents of all wards of the city. Second, as returning citizens, job placement and professional opportunities that were offered to me at OAG were invaluable and have paved the way for my future career. Serving as a paralegal specialist was personally rewarding because it allowed me the opportunity to meet community members, resolve their issues, the opportunity to listen to residents, help them problem solve, and communicate with businesses and landlords on their behalf made me proud and proud of the role OAG plays in the community. Professionally, the experience helped me to improve my skill set, and I was extremely supportive and collaborative environment that continues to benefit me in my current employment. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions and grateful to have this opportunity to testify before your committee today.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gathers.
You're more than welcome.
Ruth Wilcox, public witness.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Pinto. I humbly and respectfully request the council to enforce the municipal regulations that it has enacted. My testimony today is centered on the performance oversight question and response number 23, relating to the agency's procedures for investigating allegations of sexual harassment or misconduct committed by or against its employees. The Office of the Attorney General is responsible for enforcing and ensuring laws aren't violated and defending certain actions in the District of Columbia and or its various agencies. But what happens when OAG itself violates these laws? Where are the checks and balances? Imagine being the subject of a frivolous investigation that carried on for nearly a year. Municipal Regulation 1602.3 A and B were specifically enacted by the City Council to prevent extended investigations. The regulation was motivated by the exorbitant amount of time that the adverse action process was taking, such that employees had to wait months or even years to see a conclusion of an investigation against them. The deadline was intended to bring certainty to employees of adverse action that may otherwise linger indefinitely. Though OAG is an independent agency, it is also subject to the following of certain rules, such as 1602.3 A and B. There continues to be a willful disregard for obeying DC municipal regulations and manipulation of others by some of OAG's management staff. When regulations are enacted but not enforced, it helps to foster a place of hostility, retaliation, low morale, and it becomes a breeding ground for health issues. I respectfully request the council to mandate OAG to implement some SOPs which will clearly outline the agency's responsibility as needed to govern the processing, handling, and reporting of investigations, including timeframes, and facilitate compliance with the statutory requirements of DC Code 1602.3 A and B. Also, I strongly consider that the council consider moving the Child Support Services Division under DHS. We as citizens and government employees are reliant upon the council to ensure trust, transparency, and accountability within these government agencies. In recognition of Black History Month, I end with 3 very important quotes from the late, great James Baldwin. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. We can agree and still love each other unless the disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and right to exist. And lastly, I can't believe what you say because I see what you do. So we have to do better with transparency. And I am pleading with the council to take the appropriate actions in enforcing these laws that it enacts. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, Ms. Wilcox. Next, we will hear from Marquette White, public witness. Marquette White, are you here? If you're here, you need to take yourself off mute. Okay, we will turn to Linda Long, public witness.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Pinto and other council members. Thank you for the opportunity to testify to today's oversight hearing regarding truancy and the Attend program. My name is Ms. Long, Linda Long, and I am the attendance counselor at Paul Public Charter School. Paul PCS serves grades 5 through 12. Today, I am testifying to share general truancy concerns and our partnership with the Attend program. Daily school attendance is critical for students to thrive academically, emotionally, and socially. When students fail to attend school on a regular basis, they miss valuable instruction, which leads to a devastating impact on progress in school. And there is a higher risk of students dropping out from school, which leads to a host of other challenges in the community. The schools, parents, and community agencies must all be held accountable and play a vital role to increase school attendance, reduce chronic absenteeism and truancy. As the attendance counselor, it is vital to communicate attendance concerns, school attendance policies, the DC compulsory education laws with families. We work diligently to ensure that families receive important attendance information during parent orientation prior to the start of each year. Next, parents receive communication daily about absences, as well as at various absence thresholds to address challenges impacting attendance. Paul PCS works diligently to provide a welcoming and safe and engaging learning environment. The school offers extracurricular activities, parent events, and other activities to engage students and families. Our school also offers incentives to improve attendance, such as dress down incentives and gift card incentives. Despite our best efforts, sometimes parents are not always responsive to attendance communication regarding absences. Parents receive an automated call, email, text on the day of the absences. Parents are given the option to provide explanations via phone, email, Google form, or sending in a note or document to excuse absences. If a parent fails to provide the timely explanation, the absence remains unexcused after 5 days per OSCE. I'm required to refer all students that reach various unexcused absence thresholds to a community agency for support, such as the PASS program. In many cases, the parents simply decline support, even if the youth could benefit from those resources. The next required referral is the educational neglect referral with CFSA for students that reach 10 unexcused absences. Nearly all referrals are not accepted via educational neglect due to the situation not arising to the level of requiring child protective services involvement at the time. The final mandated referral is the truancy referral. For several years, Ms. Reed from OAG has been a great asset to Paul Public Charter School. When asked, she has spoken to parents during our one of our parent orientations, and she has sent other representatives from her team to speak about attendance and truancy. This year, I'm happy because our school has partnered with the Attend program to support sixth graders that reached their 10th unexcused absence. Mr. Brown Gorwich and Ms. Madison, the case managers assigned to support our school, have been phenomenal with outreach to parents, weekly meetings, arranging mediations for the school and parents, and they also provide case management. There has been an improvement in many of the participants, and parents have also been more responsive and engaging with the school. In closure, I am hopeful that the Attend program can expand to more grades and serve more schools. I strongly believe that all parents, along with schools and community agencies, must be held accountable with utilizing resources that are offered. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think that's a great note to end on for our public witness portion today, of making sure that we're all doing everything we can from our government to the Attend program to our educators and families of ensuring that kids are in school. It is the best place for kids to be. Kids need to be in school, and we need to all work together to ensure that happens. So thank you for lifting up those important issues, Ms. Long, and thank you to all of our public witnesses on this panel and who testified today about the Office of the Attorney General. We really appreciate your perspective. And as I said, we heard about so many important work streams that OAG is involved with, which really demonstrates the large breadth of effort going on from OAG. So appreciate all of your perspective. We are going to take a recess. The time is now 1:23 p.m. and we are going to be recessed until 2 p.m. today, where we will pick up and hear from our Attorney General, Brian Schwab, at 2 p.m. So again, we're coming back at 2 p.m. The time is now 1:23 p.m. and we are recessed.